Chapter 2765. It was another big attack. The power of Yi Shiwen's attack was really amazing. He didn't even need to use anything else. His own strength alone was enough to suppress everything. Yi Shiwen's physical strength alone was enough to suppress the 10 great divine kings. Yi Shiwen's body-refining technique was so tyrannical that it was terrifying. Many people made up their minds. If there was a day of competition in the future, they definitely couldn't let him get close to them. Otherwise, they would be finished. This kind of person was really too dangerous. Once he got close to them, they would probably die. Why? Aren't you going to suppress me now? Yi Shiwen sneered. The Lord of the Netherworld's face turned ugly. He used all his strength. He didn't dare to use illusory techniques. It turned out that such techniques were useless in front of Yi Shiwen, who had mastered the law of space. He could only humiliate himself. He directly confronted Yi Shiwen head-on. Bang! He received Yi Shiwen's attack with both his hands. The Lord of the Netherworld suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body instantly flew out like a meteor. This was the first time he really fought with Yi Shiwen head-on. He truly tasted Yi Shiwen's terrifying strength. The Lord of the Netherworld kept spitting out blood. How can his strength be so great? You want to catch me? I want to see how many techniques you have to dare to catch me. Yi Shiwen sneered. It was unknown when he had flown above the Lord of the Netherworld. At this time, the Lord of the Netherworld was still flying in the air. Yi Shiwen not only had infinite strength, but he had also deduced the law of speed to the limit. With these 2 points, he was invincible. In the world of martial arts, only speed could not be defeated. Everyone understood this truth. There were also people who believed that they had reached the pinnacle in a certain aspect. However, it seemed that they were nothing compared to Yi Shiwen. Not to mention that Yi Shiwen had amazing attainments in both aspects. Sky-flipping seal. At this time, Yi Shiwen began to condense a seal and directly smashed it down. The Lord of the Netherworld wanted to resist. He raised his hand and used the secret technique of the Netherworld race. However, it was useless. Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. He attacked like lightning. Thunder and lightning were rumbling around his arm. His attack was too fast. Bang! The Lord of the Underworld's secret technique was broken in an instant. Then a sky-flipping seal was pressed against his body. Boom! The Lord of the Underworld let out a blood-curdling scream as he was smashed onto the ground. A huge crack appeared on the ground. The Lord of the Netherworld also let out a miserable shriek. He was almost turned into ashes. At this moment, a terrifying aura erupted, shocking the heavens and earth. Yi Shiwen had said that he would attack. And he had done it in such a straightforward and efficient manner. He had killed his opponent in one move. In the blink of an eye, the Lord of the Netherworld had been severely injured. This level of power made everyone tremble in fear. It was too fast. It was so fast that before everyone could even react to what had happened, it was already over. The Lord of the Netherworld screamed again and again. It sounded like the roar of a ghost. However, Yi Shiwen didn't kill him one step further. Instead, he stood with his hands behind his back, then looked towards the void and asked, Immortal Copper King, you're here too, right? I want an explanation. Is arresting me a joint decision of your higher-ups? A figure slowly appeared. But who else could it be but the Immortal Copper King? Sigh. The Immortal Copper King sighed slightly and said, Yi Shiwen, our original intention was to invite you back to assist in the investigation, but we didn't expect that it would end up like this. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, Assist in the investigation? Is this considered assisting in the investigation? You've really mustered a large force. One of the 10 great divine kings personally invited me back to assist in the investigation. Do you think that my IQ is that of a 3-year-old child? Do you think that I would believe such words? Everyone was in an uproar. This matter was also a little strange to them. In their opinion, although Yi Shiwen was arrogant and domineering, he was already at his level. There were many people who were even more unreasonable than him, who would dare to say that he was wrong. This itself was nothing. Not to mention, Yi Shiwen's performance during this period of time was also considered obvious to all. It was unknown how many people were indirectly saved by him. They even saw Yi Shiwen block the Dao tool of the heavenly clan with their own eyes. If it wasn't so, perhaps not even half of them would be able to escape in the end. They would be surrounded like dumplings. It was already very good to be able to escape 1/10 of them. To say that Yi Shiwen colluded with the heavenly clan, just this point alone was enough for everyone to not believe. Yi Shiwen could also be considered as one of the higher-ups of the Allied forces. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for him to be inexplicably arrested like this. Otherwise, if everyone was in a panic, then who would truly give their lives for the Allied forces? Even Yi Shiwen, who had made such a great contribution, was arrested just like that, let alone the others. Sigh. Yi Shiwen, regarding this matter, it can be considered that we handled it somewhat improperly. But now you can also be considered to have vented your anger. Immortal Copper King said faintly. As the number one of the 10 great divine kings, and also the number one person in the world in many people's opinion, he naturally had his pride and self-esteem. It was impossible for him to personally put down his status and apologize to Yi Shiwen. Vented my anger? Ha, really funny. What anger do I have to vent? Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. I just want to know what exactly is the cause of the matter. I should also be one of the higher-ups of the Allied forces now. Making such a decision, and even I wasn't notified. No matter how I look at it, it can't be justified. In the past 3 years, you disappeared in a closed-door training, so we also couldn't contact you. Now, it can also be considered as some misunderstanding. Immortal Copper King continued. Many people opened their eyes wide, somewhat in disbelief. Immortal Copper King actually admitted defeat. This was simply a miracle, although Immortal Copper King's tone was still very indifferent. Those who knew Immortal Copper King's temperament well knew that he was an iron-fisted person. He never allowed anyone to disobey his wishes. Even the 10 great divine kings rarely contradicted Immortal Copper King head-on, because once Immortal Copper King erupted, perhaps everyone would suffer a loss. Immortal Copper King's reputation as the number one person in the world, the number one of the 10 great divine kings, was not boasted but fought for. Many of those 10 great divine kings had suffered losses from him. Now he actually admitted defeat in front of Yi Shiwen. This was a strange story. Could it be because Yi Shiwen easily defeated the Netherworld King before? In the eyes of everyone, there was simply a good show to watch. Whether it was Immortal Copper King, who had always been known as the number one person in the world, or Yi Shiwen, who was currently in a fierce momentum and had defeated Pure Moon King and Netherworld King one after another, they were not people who were willing to be under others. A little misunderstanding? Yi Shiwen smiled faintly. Do you think this is just a misunderstanding? Even a 3-year-old child won't believe such an explanation. To be able to prompt you to make such a decision, I'm afraid it's someone else. Immortal Copper King, you can't interfere in this matter. I want an explanation. My brother, Yi Mo, painstakingly investigated for the Allied forces and brought the news of the rebellious emperor. In the end, he was framed as a spy. Do you think this matter is a small matter? Everyone suddenly realized that Yi Shiwen was taking the opportunity to flip out. The real source of the matter was still Yi Mo's matter. If it was said that Yi Shiwen was a spy of the Heavenly Clan, perhaps not many people would believe it. However, if it was said that Yi Mo might be a spy, then the number of people who held this view was half and half. Especially those who had relatives and friends lost in this battle. Many of them pointed the spearhead of their anger at Yi Mo, Yi Shiwen. Whether this matter is true or not, we are still investigating. It is still uncertain. There is no matter against Yi Mo. Immortal Copper King frowned slightly, and there was a slight look of anger on his face. In his opinion, he had already given in several times, and Yi Shiwen was simply insatiable. He gave him face, but Yi Shiwen didn't want it. He, the dignified number one person in the world, had already given up his face, and Yi Shiwen still dared not to give in. Did Yi Shiwen really think that he was made of mud? There is no targeting? Using such a large force to arrest me, and telling me that there is no targeting Immortal Copper King, I said that you can't interfere in this matter. I want to see on this matter who voted for it. Yi Shiwen's gaze swept across everyone. Everyone couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Some timid people were already about to faint from fear. With the ferocious might of easily defeating the king of hell just now, in everyone's hearts, Yi Shiwen had already risen to the level of a great demon king. Seeing that Yi Shiwen was going to pursue the people who voted in favor of this proposal, this couldn't help but make some people who voted in favor feel a little guilty and even a little scared. The Allied forces were a temporary organization formed by the major forces. No party could wield the power alone. Whether it was Yi Mo or Yi Shiwen, they had already displayed the strength of the 10 great divine kings. To make a decision against 10 great divine king-level experts, it wasn't something that the immortal Copper King could say. If the immortal Copper King dared to act so recklessly, the Allied forces would have long been in chaos. There were many experts in the Allied forces, and they wouldn't just watch the immortal Copper King act recklessly. Therefore, it wasn't hard for Yi Shiwen to guess that there should be a lot of people who voted in favor. These people were probably looking forward to Yi Shiwen's tragic death. How could Yi Shiwen give any face to these people? Many people avoided Yi Shiwen's gaze and didn't dare to confront him. Yi Shiwen's gaze seemed to have the effect of penetrating people's hearts and could thoroughly discover the secrets at the bottom of everyone's hearts. Yi Shiwen, don't go too far, the immortal Copper King said angrily. In his opinion, he already gave way again and again, but Yi Shiwen actually still didn't let it go. This had the meaning of slapping his face. Unfortunately, what he didn't know was that although his reputation was resounding, it was nothing to Yi Shiwen. Even if it was slapping his face, so what? 3 years ago, perhaps there wasn't much difference between Yi Shiwen and the immortal Copper King. They were only on par. But in just 3 years, the gap is already like heaven and earth. I say, immortal Copper King, I haven't seen you for so many years. Why have your courage become smaller and smaller? Isn't he just a junior? Does he still dare to overturn the heavens? Chapter 2766. I say, immortal Copper King, I haven't seen you for so many years. Why are you getting more and more timid? Isn't he just a junior? Does he dare to overturn the heavens? A loud voice came from afar. As the voice just finished, a middle-aged man appeared in front of everyone. This person wore a cyan gown. Greetings, Senior Nightmare. Everyone saluted the person who came. Even immortal Copper King, the leader of the 10 great god kings, had to salute this person. Nightmare, what was this person's background? Among the experts that Yi Shiwen was familiar with, this person didn't exist. However, everyone seemed to know. At this moment, Flame Lord's secret voice suddenly came into Yi Shiwen's ears. Junior Brother Yi, this person is the leader of the 10 great god kings whose name shook the world tens of thousands of years ago. It's said that he once contended with Qin Emperor. He is also very experienced in the devil race. Those who can compare with him are as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. It's just that he left the devil world many years ago and suddenly came back some time ago. He was the one who strongly advocated punishing you and Yi Mo. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but take another look at this nightmare. He was already the leader of the 10 great god kings tens of thousands of years ago. This experience was much more profound than immortal Copper King. No wonder even immortal Copper King could only admit defeat. However, he only glanced at them a little longer. For Yi Shiwen, the 10 great divine kings of the past were nothing to be afraid of. Nightmare put his hands behind his back and looked coldly at Yi Shiwen. You are Yi Shiwen? Why don't you obediently surrender? Surrender? Ha ha ha, this is too funny. Who do you think you are? You actually want me to obediently let you capture me without putting up a fight? Ridiculous. Yi Shiwen burst into laughter as if he had seen something incredible. Everyone didn't laugh and looked at both sides in shock. Whether it was Yi Shiwen or this nightmare, they had already surpassed the level that they could reach. Nightmare frowned slightly and said, resisting stubbornly won't do you any good. This time, it was just a matter of convenience. You're just a little suspicious. However, Yi Mo's suspicion is huge. I don't believe it's such a coincidence. He didn't find the others, but he found the rebellious emperor. Nightmare continued talking to itself. This is only a slight suspicion, yet they have mobilized such a big force. So, if there is a real suspicion, then what kind of force would they have mobilized? Yi Shiwen sneered and remained unmoved. It seems like you are really stubborn. Originally, I wanted to cherish your talent because of your young age and high cultivation. Now it seems like I have wasted my efforts. Nightmare sneered. Cherishing talent? What a high and mighty cherishing talent. I really can't afford it. Yi Shiwen sneered. At this time he already understood in his heart. No wonder Immortal Copper King dared to issue such an order. Although the 10 great Divine King class experts were divided into strong and weak, they did not have a clear leadership relationship. Yi Shiwen wasn't one of the 10 great God Kings, but he had defeated Clear Moon King. That meant that he was an expert of that level. Especially when they needed manpower, did Immortal Copper King have nothing better to do and wanted to make things difficult for him. Moreover, the expert they had to deal with was another 10 Great God King class expert. Speaking of which, Yi Mo had defeated Clear Moon King earlier than Yi Shiwen. The price to pay here wasn't something a shrewd person would do. It would be fine if there was concrete evidence, but there was no concrete evidence. Doing such a thing with just a guess definitely couldn't be Immortal Copper King's decision. That was why Yi Shiwen said that this matter was out of his control. It was because he had already thought of these things. Now, the mastermind behind the scenes had finally appeared. It should be this so-called Nightmare, another person who had once dominated the world. The myriad heavens and myriad worlds had existed for countless years. During this process, many great waves washed away the sand. It was unknown how many experts had passed away, and it was unknown how many experts had left the mortal world. However, this did not mean that these people had disappeared from the world. No one knew where these people were staying. Basically, they were pursuing the supreme position of the emperor. If it wasn't for the fact that the matter this time was too big, it would probably be impossible for these old monsters to be blown up. These people were no longer attracted by secular matters, unless it was related to achieving Tao. You don't know what's good for you. Nightmare looked at him coldly and said, "Since you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, then don't blame me for being impolite." He had already completely lost his patience. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen was simply stubborn. He was also too lazy to say anything more to Yi Shiwen. Instantly, a claw grabbed towards Yi Shiwen. Once an expert made a move, it would be obvious. This claw carried an extremely ancient and desolate aura. When the claw came down, the world changed color. Compared to Lord of Hell's attack, just now, it was countless times stronger. Just a casual attack already surpassed ordinary 10 great divine kings. This was an ancient quasi-emperor. This claw was simple, but it had the power to turn something rotten into something magical. No one sensed it. They only felt that it was very simple. Only the God Kings and above felt their hearts skip a beat. It felt like they had manifested the ways of the world. In particular, the God Kings who did not have legacies of a higher level felt like their horizons had been broadened, as they had never seen what it was like to fight at a higher level. Now that they had suddenly seen it, they immediately felt like they had been enlightened. It was a feeling that couldn't be explained clearly. Simply put, it was a feeling of not understanding, but it opened up another path for their future. Especially Immortal Copper King. He had already come into contact with this realm and was about to touch this limit, so he could see the terror of this nightmare even more. Back then, not long after he had just vindicated his Tao, Nightmare was already a king rank expert whose name shook the world. The difference in seniority between the two was too great and couldn't be calculated with logic. Now, although he was already the head of the 10 great divine kings, compared to Senior Nightmare, there was still a large gap. This attack represented countless years of inheritance and foundation. It wasn't something that could be made up for in a short time. However, he was slightly relieved in his heart. Yi Shiwen's temper was more unyielding than initially expected. He didn't accept the interrogation of the Alliance Army's higher-ups. Of course, it might also be related to Lord of Hell's bad attitude from the start. With Nightmare supporting him, Lord of Hell naturally didn't care about Yi Shiwen. He didn't expect Yi Shiwen to not care about him at all and defeated him in 2 or 3 moves. If Nightmare didn't appear, then he would have a headache. Clang! Yi Shiwen's hand spat out a sword aura out of nowhere. It was attached with a boundless sword intent, and he directly slashed towards Nightmare. This was the Dominator Sword intent. Once he attacked, he dominated the world and suppressed all directions. No one could resist. Although it was the Heaven Race's martial arts, and it was more suitable for the Heaven Race's martial arts, at his level, it didn't matter about moves anymore. Once he attacked, he would use the martial arts conception. It involved the operation of the Great Tao. This was the same for all races. When he used the Demon Race's martial arts in his early years, he had to resist the erosion of demonic aura. It was very difficult. However, now he could freely operate it without any obstruction. He could also easily transform demonic aura. All martial arts could explode with boundless power in his hands. Boom! Both sides collided and exploded in an instant. The heavens and earth shook. The formation that could even withstand the battle of the 10 great divine kings actually had cracks, as though it couldn't withstand it anymore. There were explosive energy shockwaves everywhere. Specks of stars scattered in all directions. It was as though night had fallen, and the stars were twinkling. In the sky, one could see the sun, moon, and stars everywhere. The two exchanged blows, and it was actually a draw. As everyone thought, Nightmare easily took down Yi Shiwen. It was completely different. Yi Shiwen didn't show any weakness and completely withstood Nightmare's attack. Dominator Sword Intent. This is the sword art of a Dominator Emperor. The last time I saw it was a long time ago. You really are related to the Heaven Race. Nightmare's eyes narrowed slightly, and terrifying killing intent burst out from his eyes. Using Dominator Sword Intent means that I'm related to the Heaven Race? Yi Shiwen sneered. Even if there isn't a direct connection, there is definitely some relationship. Wait until I take you down and interrogate. Nightmare roared, and the aura on his body began to frantically soar. Interrogate me? Then let's see if you have the ability. Yi Shiwen naturally wasn't moved. Such a threat was completely useless to him. Yi Shiwen, don't resist. This isn't just Senior Nightmare's idea. Immortal Copper King hurriedly shouted, afraid that both sides would directly fight here. He was also warning Yi Shiwen that it wasn't just Nightmare, a quasi-emperor and an old monster that pushed for this proposal. There were probably many old monsters that were watching coldly from the sidelines in the universe that were also involved. Otherwise, with Immortal Copper King's prestige, he wouldn't surrender so easily. The mastermind behind this was far from this simple. I don't care how many people there are. If some people don't know how to speak properly, then I'll teach them a lesson. Yi Shiwen didn't care at all. Even if it wasn't for himself, he couldn't hand Yi Mo over. He couldn't do such a thing. Immortal Copper King, you don't need to talk so much nonsense with him. Once I capture him and interrogate him, won't everything be clear? Nightmare couldn't be bothered to speak any more nonsense with Yi Shiwen. The Nightmare clawed at Yi Shiwen again. There were no rules, just like the horns of an antelope hanging on an antelope's horn. It was simply unfathomable. Heaven and earth roared in unison, actually triggering the resonance of the Great Tao. Chapter 2767. Yet, this Nightmare was able to achieve this easily. It was imaginable how profound his strength was. The more powerful he was, the more he didn't need those gorgeous appearances. He only needed his tyrannical strength to turn the world upside down. The two of them didn't resist at all because they didn't want to turn this place into ruins. Otherwise, they would be sinners. Yet, Yi Shiwen dared to do so because he still had the time robe to protect him. Although it wasn't activated, it could still protect him. With enough Emperor Source in hand, he didn't have anything to be afraid of. The energy shockwave from the battle between the two of them had already exceeded the scope that the Alliance headquarters could allow, so it was naturally diverted away. At his current age, it was already hard for everyone to accept the fact that he had forcefully charged into the 10 great divine kings' battle prowess. They had just accepted this fact, yet Yi Shiwen had once again given them a huge surprise. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, how could they possibly believe such an unruly fact? So what if I am? Yi Shiwen also stopped. In the battle, Yi Shiwen didn't counterattack much. Basically, he dealt with everything that came his way. All the attacks were easily received by him. At the same time, he was constantly verifying the power and strength of this realm. Bang! This wasn't impossible. With Yi Shiwen's performance, he wasn't inferior to many tyrannical Emperor King level experts when they were young. The most recent one, Emperor Qin at his age, was probably at the same level. He's already so impressive right now. Just how impressive will he be in the future? A God King said fearfully because he had voted in favor of the motion. This attack directly resonated with the heaven and earth. It was imaginable how terrifying it was. Ordinary divine kings couldn't achieve this level even if they used their full strength. The heaven and earth had its own trajectory. If it wasn't for an extremely profound understanding of the trajectory of the heaven and earth, it was impossible to achieve this level. Now, he was using the battle against nightmares to continuously verify what he had learned. He was slowly controlling the power of this level and becoming stronger and stronger. To others, this was unimaginable. When experts of this level fought, victory and defeat could be determined in an instant. The difference of one move could mean life and death. The two of them fought more frequently in the void. In this small world, there was an Emperor King array, so it wouldn't collapse. Otherwise, with their strength, it would have completely collapsed. Slowly, everyone could see it. They could clearly feel that Yi Shiwen was becoming stronger. This couldn't be deceived. Yi Shiwen didn't have many opportunities to counterattack at the beginning. Now he constantly counterattacked. Both of them were gradually attacking and defending each other. It was important to know that although he had reached the late-stage king-ranked realm in these 3 years, and his battle strength was comparable to a quasi-thearch's, he had never really fought with a quasi-thearch before. Previously, he had only been able to hold his own against a Tao artifact with the help of the time robe. Even the old quasi-thearch from the Sky Race had only seen him from afar and had never really fought with him. Originally, they thought that there shouldn't be any problem standing behind Nightmare. That was why they had dared to vote in favor. The Alliance Army headquarters was where the Alliance Army's main camp was during the previous 2 Anti-Heaven Alliance wars. No one knew how many Thearchs had gone to reinforce this place. Hence, this seemingly ordinary place could have a hidden Emperor King array. When needed, it would automatically activate, such as now. Many people's hearts started to pound. Hence, he could only propose this proposal. He couldn't act domineeringly. Bang! The two of them collided. Compared to before, the shockwaves this time were even more terrifying and intense. In an instant, many more ancient array formations were activated. Everyone was extremely shocked. At this moment, Nightmare's heart was also in turmoil. Yi Shiwen's combat power had actually reached such a level. Yi Shiwen was able to fight with him without being at a disadvantage. This in itself was illogical. The two of them were instantly teleported out into a small world. This was the activation of the formation that the Monarch had set up earlier. Even though the two of them were strong enough, they were still helpless against the means of the Monarch. Yi Shiwen, you actually dared to use me to cultivate. Nightmare's claw scratched Yi Shiwen's body, but it couldn't scratch his fur. It immediately jumped away, stood with its hands behind its back, and looked coldly at Yi Shiwen. Looking at it now, even if Nightmare personally attacked, it wouldn't be able to cause a fundamental suppression on Yi Shiwen. The two of them attacked with all their strength, without holding back. Every attack was more intense than before. Bang! It should be nothing. After all, this time, not only Senior Nightmare, but many other seniors have also returned. They just didn't show up. Even if Yi Shiwen can fight against Senior Nightmare, he can't truly fight against all the Thearchs alone. Someone immediately said. After comforting himself like this, he immediately felt much better. Could it be that he was really the favored son of heaven? Many people might not have personally seen how terrifying this nightmare was, but they had basically all heard of its legends. Even the immortal Copper King didn't dare challenge its sharpness, yet Yi Shiwen actually dared to oppose it. Moreover, it seemed like he actually didn't have the feeling of completely falling into a dead end. Facing this claw, Yi Shiwen didn't have the slightest change in expression. He just formed a seal with both hands, forming a sky-flipping seal. Waves of savage aura emitted from his body. With the sky-flipping seal in his left hand and the Dominator Sword Intent in his right hand, he launched a counterattack against Nightmare on the spot. This fierceness was simply tyrannical and terrifying. It had always been him who leapfrogged an enemy. Now, someone leapfrogged him, and he couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen for a while. Was there anything more unbearable than this? And Yi Shiwen, who could be mentioned in the same breath as Nightmare, had already reached this realm? Although he was at a disadvantage, it was still an unimaginable ending for everyone. This also showed how many people Yi Shiwen had offended in the process of his rise. It was unknown how many people were envious of him and wanted to suppress him. At the same time, while everyone was discussing, the battle between Yi Shiwen and Nightmare had already reached a white-hot stage. If the two continue fighting like this, I can't tell who will win and who will lose. I feel that they are both so strong, completely exceeding my understanding. This was like forging iron. Nightmare's power was an iron hammer that constantly hammered Yi Shiwen. It was testing his comprehension of the Great Tao, allowing him to have matching control. At this moment, Yi Shiwen seemed to be training, but also seemed to be fighting, or perhaps both. Everyone already didn't consider the problem of Yi Shiwen's realm. Even if it was merely his combat power reaching that level, it was already shocking. Everyone already knew that Nightmare's strength had already surpassed the 10 great divine kings. He had already reached the legendary Emperor realm that was only half a step away from the Emperor realm. Many people were terrified. Unless an Emperor realm truly descended, it was impossible to do anything to him. He had already reached the Emperor realm. In the future, who could restrain him? Could it be that he would really directly achieve Tao in the future? Thinking about how many years Yi Shiwen had cultivated, compared to everyone, he didn't even reach a fraction. How could he be so tyrannical? And in this process, there were too many people who voted in favor. In the end, Immortal Copper King could only agree. His surroundings were emitting waves of demonic energy. Only at this time could one see his identity as a demon. It was just that he had gradually cultivated to an extreme and became a human body, an innate Tao body. Just like the demon race, under normal circumstances, he wouldn't change into his true form. Bang! He doesn't need to fight against all the Emperor Realm experts. Those who are truly biased against him are only those people. There are also people who want to protect him. Martial Sect is trying to protect him. If it wasn't for Senior Nightmare's stubbornness, it wouldn't be like this. This was someone who didn't vote in favor, so there was naturally nothing to worry about. Their backs were also very firm. In general, Nightmares were attacking, while Yi Shiwen was defending. However, no matter how terrifying Nightmare's attacks were, Yi Shiwen could always resist them. He could even launch a counterattack while resisting with all his might. Unfortunately, Yi Shiwen's personality was now widely known. He would definitely take revenge for the smallest grievance. If they couldn't suppress him now, in a few tens of thousands of years, who would be his opponent? They found that Yi Shiwen seemed to break their definition of a genius again and again. Every time they thought that they had thoroughly seen through Yi Shiwen's strength, they thought that there would be no more mistakes. But who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would go one step further? Although he was a quasi-low-rank expert, Nightmare couldn't control the entire Alliance army. This was because the Alliance army had many factions and king sects. Among them, there were many Emperor Realm inheritances. No one knew how many old monsters there were in these sections. Especially when they reached their level, they usually didn't make a move, but once they did, the world would be turned upside down. Many god kings were already silent. Originally, they thought that Yi Shiwen was too arrogant. He dared to clamor in front of a super great senior like Nightmare. Now, it seemed that Yi Shiwen definitely had his reasons for daring to clamor. He indeed had the strength to do so. Many people finally understood why Yi Shiwen dared to challenge Nightmare. He actually had the strength to match it. Chapter 2768. Everyone exclaimed and sucked in a breath of cold air. Facing the incomparably powerful quasi-emperors, Yi Shiwen actually dared to use them to practice. What kind of astonishing courage was this? It was simply unimaginable. Even the 10 great divine kings couldn't compare to these old monsters who had already stepped into the quasi-emperor realm. Even if they snatched the immortal Copper King, they would still have to yield under the pressure of these old monsters. Such great courage, The younger generation nowadays is really getting more and more powerful. Nightmare couldn't help but sneer, but no matter how hard you work, it's useless. You're only in the Divine King realm. The disparity with me in the quasi-emperor realm is too great. As he spoke, surging magic powers spread out from Nightmare's body. Immediately, countless demonic energy was transformed and soared into the sky. In midair, it seemed to have evolved into a huge divine country. One powerful demon after another sat in this divine country, evolving into a supreme demonic land. Many demons widened their eyes in shock because they felt a sense of familiarity when they looked at these powerful demons. Some of them were the inheritances they had learned. These demons aren't real people. They aren't even living creatures, but evolved from countless magical martial arts of the demonic path. Someone finally confirmed it, but it caused even more people to suck in a breath of cold air. These martial arts and magical martial arts of the demonic path, any one of them could be said to be world-shocking. They all had a long history of inheritance. For an ordinary person to be able to learn one of them could be said to be blessed with great luck, let alone him being able to learn so many, no less than 3,000 magical martial arts of the demonic path. Moreover, he had already learned them to an extremely exquisite level. It could be said to be brought to the point of perfection. This cultivation could be said to be earth-shattering. He really didn't live for so many years in vain. Not only was his martial power constantly accumulating and invincible, more importantly, his comprehension of the martial arts and magical martial arts was also unimaginable for ordinary people. Yi Shiwen also had a way to achieve 3,000 magical martial arts, but that would require too much time to comprehend. Yi Shiwen, I will now let you understand how big the gap is between you and us. 3,000 demon Daos. This is my Dao. Nightmare said coldly. His whole person was like a demon king standing in the air, exuding an ancient aura. The 3,000 demonic martial arts revolved around him, constantly rotating, transforming into a brand new world. Unexpectedly, he wanted to evolve a world of his own with these 3,000 demonic martial arts. 3,000 demon Dao. With Yi Shiwen's current cultivation, he could see through the reason for Nightmare's move at a glance. It actually wanted to imitate the 3,000 great Daos with Devil Dao's magical power, and then use it to practice the 3,000 great Daos. Now, it had already reached the peak of perfection, but it had yet to succeed. If he could succeed, it would indeed be enough for him to walk a path that no one had ever walked before, and it was even possible for him to achieve Dao through this. This was the same principle as Jun Dingtian's 3,000 sword Dao back then, but it was even more terrifying. Even at his peak, Jun Dingtian paled in comparison to Nightmare, and his 3,000 demon Dao was even more profound. It could almost be said that this was a path to heaven, and each of the 3,000 great Daos could be obtained. However, it didn't mean that there were only these 3,000 methods. Any two of the great Daos would evolve into a brand new method, and with these 3,000 great Daos as the foundation, there would be countless paths in front of the cultivator. It could almost be said that there were countless great Daos in the world, and they would eventually be able to obtain Dao. It was just a matter of whether it was easy or difficult. However, it was rare to be able to achieve it. It had been like this since ancient times. These demonic paths, divine abilities, and martial arts had actually cultivated to the form of a human. This was a very special method. Any one of them would have the strength of a peak divine king. If they were lucky enough to escape, they might even develop their own intelligence and become invincible. Yi Shiwen could feel that the demonic martial arts in his body had begun to stir. The opponent's 3,000 demon Dao was all-encompassing. 3,000 was just a number, and he didn't know how many demon Dao were contained within. Even the devil's wings had begun to stir faintly, but it was only stirring. This was an emperor-level martial art, and it wouldn't be easily shaken. That's right, it's the 3,000 demon Dao. That's right, the 3,000 devil Dao. Yi Shiwen, although you have some ability, you are still a rising star. How can you understand our methods? You are still walking the path of your predecessors. Although the Dominator Sword intent is powerful, you are not a Dominator or Emperor. I'm already forging my own path. The difference between us is obvious. Around him, all the 3,000 demon Tao were revolving, forming a huge vortex. For a moment, the world turned dark, and the sun and moon lost their light. All the great Taos were suppressed in an instant. In this place, he was the true ruler of the demon world. All the demonic martial arts and divine arts were under his control. Yi Shiwen was unmoved. Even if the pressure was crushing the entire small world, it was nothing to him. He forcefully suppressed all the divine arts and martial arts that were stirring. 3,000 demon Tao, what a terrifying concept. This is indeed an unprecedented path. If we can succeed, we might really have a chance to attain the Tao. How can it be so easy to succeed? If it's only one path, then perhaps there's a possibility of reaching the top. However, if it's 3,000 demonic paths, then each path needs to be cultivated to the peak of perfection. Who knows how much time will be consumed during this process? It requires great perseverance and great willpower to succeed. Someone disagreed. 3,000 demon Tao seemed like a shortcut, but it was actually a dividing line that was difficult to cross. If one of the 3,000 demon Tao wanted to use this to attain the Tao, one must cultivate each type of demon Tao martial arts and divine arts to the peak of perfection. Only then would it be possible. If it was only one of them, it might be possible. However, to reach all 3,000 was simply impossible. Although everyone hadn't reached that realm, it didn't stop them from understanding this principle. The difficulty of this path could be imagined. What's so special about that? Since ancient times, has any of the paths been simple? It is precisely because only an extremely small number of people can achieve it that the Emperor path is so attractive, isn't it? That's right. Although it is difficult, the power is already frighteningly strong. Can Yi Shiwen block it? It is impossible. Although Yi Shiwen is powerful, compared to a true quasi-emperor, he isn't on the same level at all, isn't it? To be able to block my 3,000 demon Tao's coercion without batting an eyelid, I have to say, Yi Shiwen, among all the juniors I have seen, you are the most outstanding one. However, so what? In front of me, who has created my own Tao, what you have learned and what you have used are so childish and laughable. Nightmare's expression was as usual. After a flash of surprise, he regained his calm expression. This 3,000 demon Tao is indeed a very amazing idea. However, you, who have chosen this path, how long will it take for you to complete it? Yi Shiwen said coldly. You say that I am not your match just because I use the Dominator Sword intent? To abandon everything is to walk a unique path, a path that no one has ever walked before. However, to me, using all the martial arts and divine arts that can be used is also my Tao. Adhere to your heart. Everything else is external. You don't even understand this principle. Yet you dare to say that you have transcended? Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. His aura erupted and rushed through the sky that was enveloped by the 3,000 demon Tao. Sophistry. Nightmare snorted coldly, but he didn't think much of it. This was because he had never thought of using these words to defeat Yi Shiwen. After cultivating to this stage, he had his own Tao that couldn't be easily shaken. Just now, when the 3,000 demon Tao appeared, he wanted to take advantage of Yi Shiwen's momentary absent-mindedness to defeat his Tao. Unfortunately, Yi Shiwen didn't even have that momentary absent-mindedness. This meant that his Tao wasn't that scary in his eyes. Nightmare didn't continue to tangle with Yi Shiwen. Instead, he formed a seal with both hands. The vitality of the entire world was instantly sucked clean. Instantly, it poured into his 3,000 demon Tao like a reversed river. Then, this nightmare's 3,000 demon Tao began to move. They opened their eyes one after another and erupted with monstrous demonic might. Instantly, they all rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Great freedom, holy devil axe. An incomparably huge devil axe descended from the sky and directly cleaved towards Yi Shiwen. This axe was entangled with countless demon gods' resentful spirits. In an instant, it cleaved the heaven and earth apart. It was extremely terrifying. No one knew where this axe came from or where it was cleaving towards. This in itself was an unimaginably powerful martial art. This was a terrifying attack. Currently, Nightmare had already displayed his overwhelming strength. His Tao was above everyone else. Yi Shiwen clasped his hands together and shouted, "Sky-flipping seal!" In front of him, sky-flipping seal condensed and formed. It turned the heaven and earth upside down. The terrifying power formed instantly reversed and collided with the great freedom holy devil axe. Rumble! A series of terrifying explosions rang out. The collision of both parties caused the entire small world to shake like a picture scroll. There was power rolling within it. The vast power of heaven and earth surged. The pocket world began to shake, and the fluctuation of yuan, qi caused everyone to shudder. However, this attack was just the beginning. Yi Shiwen, do you think this is the end? Nightmare's voice came. At this moment, countless demonic aura rolled up and turned into countless demon Tao martial arts. All of them blasted down. Supreme demonic miasma. Faceless demonic calamity finger. Chapter 2769. 3,000 kinds of demonic path martial arts and magical powers burst out in an instant. 3,000 terrifying attacks rained down like a storm. Every attack could shatter a world. 3,000 attacks rained down at the same time. Many people would never forget such a terrifying scene after seeing it once. They couldn't imagine that there could be such a terrifying battle. Quasi-Emperor level had already surpassed the Divine King level. Whether it was power or the level of the great Tao involved in the battle, it had completely surpassed them. Even the Immortal Copper King felt a bit shocked when he saw this. The strength of a quasi-low-level expert was indeed not something an ordinary person could imagine. In a world where imperial emperors didn't come out, this was a powerful existence on the level of nuclear weapons. Otherwise, the Allied army wouldn't be chased like stray dogs. Under normal circumstances, experts of this level couldn't intervene in the affairs of the various forces. Otherwise, it would destroy the balance too much. If they went all out, the destruction of the myriad worlds was just a matter of minutes. These attacks rained down. Every kind of demonic path martial arts and magical powers were completely different. This was the most difficult to deal with because every kind of martial arts had to be dealt with in a different way. But it was obviously too late now. With this attack, even a real quasi-emperor would be severely injured and might even be killed. 6 paths of reincarnation. Yi Shiwen didn't panic. At this moment, he suddenly roared and blasted out a punch. That terrifying fist energy condensed into a 6 paths wheel in the void. The 6 paths will kept rotating and turned into the fist energy of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist that covered the sky. This was also an all-encompassing move. Nothing could escape the control of the 6 paths of reincarnation. If it was him before, he would not have been able to use such a move. But now it was different. He had comprehended the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to the point where he was only 1 step away from reaching the pinnacle. He easily displayed the 6 paths of reincarnation, suppressing all directions. The 6 paths of reincarnation that Yi Shiwen blasted out actually completely blocked the Nightmare's 3,000 demonic path. Both sides kept colliding in the void, but they were evenly matched. Countless demonic arts clashed with the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation. It was like the collision of 2 worlds. It was inconceivable and terrifying. Seeing that Yi Shiwen actually blocked his attack, Nightmare revealed an incredulous expression. In his opinion, this was a sure-kill attack that Yi Shiwen definitely could not block. However, the reality was that Yi Shiwen had blocked it. 3,000 demonic Tao as one. The Nightmare immediately restrained its shocked expression. Then, with a loud shout, the spiritual power in its entire body surged out, transforming into demonic aura that filled the sky. Then, those demonic martial arts and magical powers condensed almost all at once. Like giant dragons, they soared into the sky and suddenly pounced towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. When the 3,000 demonic Tao were combined, this attack was even more terrifying and powerful. It almost engulfed the entire small world in an instant. Facing such an attack, Yi Shiwen's expression did not change. He was like the arch himself. He opened his hands, an astonishing golden light exploded from his hands. The demonic martial arts and magical powers that pounced towards him were all annihilated. The instant they entered the golden light that Yi Shiwen had released, they were all annihilated. At that moment, Yi Shiwen finally moved. He walked towards the nightmare step by step, as if he was walking in the river of time. With every step he took, a golden flower surged out from the ground, surrounding him. In almost an instant, Yi Shiwen, who seemed slow but was actually fast, had already arrived in front of the nightmare. He threw a punch, and the tyrannical fist force instantly blasted out. It did not know if the boundless space in front of the nightmare had been destroyed. This was unbelievable power. Yi Shiwen was finally going to display the results of his cultivation over the past 3 years. It was definitely not as simple as just entering the late-stage king-ranked realm. Although he had not advanced to the quasi-thearch level, his cultivation level and his comprehension had also reached this level long ago. When he exchanged blows with the nightmare, he was not at a disadvantage. What was a quasi-thearch? It was an invincible person who was only half a step away from becoming a thearch. Since ancient times, even in the era of a thearch, a quasi-thearch was an important person who could suppress an entire region. What more now? There was almost no one who could match up to them. This Yi Shiwen has actually cultivated to such a level. He truly has the strength to fight a quasi-thearch. This is simply too frightening. This Yi Shiwen is almost undefeatable. Even when facing an old senior like the Nightmare, Yi Shiwen does not have the slightest bit of fear. It turns out that he has such strength as a foundation. However, from the looks of his explosive battle strength, I'm afraid there is still some luck involved. If they really fight, he is after all not a quasi-thearch. If this battle drags on, he will probably lose. Although everyone was very shocked by Yi Shiwen's strength, they were still very pessimistic about him. The Nightmare's name was simply too resounding. Even though countless years had passed, his name still resounded throughout the world. Moreover, there was almost no need to explain the difference between a quasi-thearch and a king-ranked. Everyone was very clear about this. At this moment, a piercingly cold sword aura erupted from Yi Shiwen's hand. He immediately transformed it into the ruler's sword intent and put down the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Speaking of which, the degree of control of the ruler's sword intent that he cultivated was even higher than the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Clang! 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 Yi Shiwen thrusted his sword 3 times in a row. Each sword was faster than the previous one. Each sword was more swift and fierce than the previous one. He had incorporated the power of the heavens into his attack. He had an invincible might, and his sword seemed to be capable of destroying the heavens and splitting the earth. The Nightmare was also shocked. He immediately felt the sharpness of Yi Shiwen's sword aura. If he continued to be attacked like this, his defense would completely collapse. Although he had just seen Yi Shiwen use the ruler's sword intent, he never imagined that Yi Shiwen could comprehend the ruler's sword intent to this extent. This didn't seem like something an outsider could do. Even within the heavenly race, it was probably very rare for someone to reach this level. Although he didn't step foot in the mortal world, it didn't mean that he didn't care about the major matters of the universe, especially regarding the heavenly race. In the past, he had fought with some experts of the heavenly race. However, he had never seen anyone who could use this sword technique left behind by a ruler or emperor to this extent. He roared loudly, and a huge black jar rose above his head. The sword aura that Yi Shiwen had slashed out was all absorbed into it. Could that be the legendary heaven-devouring devil jar that can swallow everything in the world? Looks like it's right. This isn't an ordinary item. It's said to be an artifact left behind by a demon lord back then. Although it's broken, it's still a Tao artifact. Later, it fell into the hands of Senior Nightmare. Now, it seems like it has recovered a portion of its power. Someone recognized it. This was a Tao artifact left behind by a demon lord back then. Back then, the Nightmare's name shook the world, and he was ranked first among the 10 great divine kings. To a large extent, this heaven-devouring devil jar was famous for its invincible power and illustrious prestige. Everyone only saw Yi Shiwen constantly slashing out his sword aura, but it was swallowed by the heaven-devouring devil jar. The nightmare simply clasped his hands together and constantly formed seals to control the heaven-devouring devil jar to deal with Yi Shiwen. He opened his blood-red eyes and stared at Yi Shiwen, as if he wanted to kill him with his gaze. But it was useless. Yi Shiwen didn't care at all. He just constantly slashed out with his sword, completely controlling the situation. If one only looked at the situation on the battlefield, perhaps no one would think that the quasi-emperor was the nightmare. They would only think that the quasi-emperor should be Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen completely occupied the upper hand. No one could stop his advancing footsteps. The sonorous sound of killing erupted in the deep void. It's useless. Your sword aura can't break my heaven-devouring devil jar, said the nightmare coldly. Is that so? I want to see how many of my sword attacks you can take. Yi Shiwen sneered. The nightmare didn't make a sound because he could see that the Dominator's sword intent was of a high level. Each sword consumed a massive amount of spiritual power. It couldn't be continuously used. He could exhaust the opponent to death just by exhausting it. It was just that he didn't realize that, unknowingly, he no longer had the initial intention of ending the battle quickly. At first, he didn't care about Yi Shiwen at all. Therefore, he wanted to take him down in one fell swoop to intimidate the unstable elements in the Alliance army. But now, he realized that if this were to continue, his original goal of establishing his authority would be ruined. Not to mention, he might even lose all his face. It was already very embarrassing that he couldn't take down a junior. Not to mention, he might fail at such an easy task. This was a situation he absolutely couldn't allow to happen. At this moment, the deepest thought in his heart had already changed. He absolutely couldn't fail at such an easy task and be overturned by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but sneer. How could he not see the nightmare's plan? The nightmare planned to exhaust him to death. However, he didn't care. Normally, he might think of other ways to finish him off. But it didn't matter now. The Emperor's source was continuously replenishing his consumption. A battle of this level was enough to last for many years. He didn't need to worry at all. Boom! 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 Yi Shiwen's sword aura constantly bombarded the nightmare and was swallowed by the heaven-devouring devil jar. It was almost endless. Especially Yi Shiwen. He didn't stop attacking. At first, the nightmare was still sneering, wanting to see Yi Shiwen make a fool of himself. But slowly, he couldn't laugh anymore. His face started turning ashen. Chapter 2770. Originally, Nightmare had made up his mind to exhaust Yi Shiwen to death. With the heaven-devouring demonic jar in hand, he did not have to worry about defense at all. It could even swallow the sky, let alone sword aura. Although it was only a broken heaven-devouring demonic jar, it was already a great weapon in a fight between quasi-emperors. However, he gradually discovered that something was wrong. Yi Shiwen did not seem to be exhausted at all. On the contrary, as he slashed with his sword, his understanding of the Dominator's sword intent seemed to deepen, and the power of the sword aura became stronger. This was the most terrifying thing. Growing while fighting, such a person's future was simply limitless. What was even more terrifying was that slowly, the limit that the heaven-devouring demonic jar could withstand was also slowly approaching. It originally thought that it was absolutely impossible, but now it actually appeared like this. The line of defense in its heart was broken by Yi Shiwen. If it was the complete version of the heaven-devouring demonic jar, it would not be a problem to swallow everything. But now, it was already forced into a corner by Yi Shiwen. The shadow of Yi Shiwen's waving arm had already turned into an afterimage. Only the sky full of sword aura could be seen falling like sword rain. Let's see how long you can last. A battle of this level was indeed nothing to Yi Shiwen. If it was the divine source, it would not consume much at all. Only the Emperor's source could last. Yi Shiwen, these are all your sword aura. I'll return them all to you. Suddenly, Nightmare roared, and then the heaven-devouring demonic jar suddenly flew up. Countless sword auras spewed out from it, forming a long sword Dao river that slashed towards Yi Shiwen. How terrifying was this? All of them were based on the Dominator sword aura that Yi Shiwen had just slashed out. Originally, The heaven-devouring demonic jar was known to be able to swallow everything. There was nothing that it could not swallow, and there was nothing that it could not digest. After all, this was only a half-baked heaven-devouring demonic jar. Yi Shiwen's Dominator Sword aura was also extraordinary. At this moment, all of them slashed towards Yi Shiwen. In an instant, it was majestic, as if the countless sword auras were about to open up a new world. Any one of these sword auras can kill a divine king. They were all slashed out by Yi Shiwen himself. It's a pity. Is Yi Shiwen going to die under his own sword? How many years of accumulation did the Hidden Valley finally produce such a matchless character? He was almost invincible, but now he's going to fall into his own hands? From this, it can be seen that the saying, "too rigid is easy to break," is not wrong. At this time, when we are at war with the Tian clan, losing a general like this is not a good thing. There were also some people who had enmity with Yi Shiwen. They were gnashing their teeth at this moment. They were incomparably happy in their hearts. They couldn't wait for Yi Shiwen to die. They didn't need to consider the overall situation. You want to use my sword chi to deal with me? You're dreaming. Yi Shiwen waved his hand, and all these sword ki were caught in his hand and swallowed in one fell swoop. Everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was going to be defeated by his own hands. However, they suddenly saw that Yi Shiwen had suddenly collected all of these sword energies. He didn't seem to be struggling at all. All of them were absorbed by the time robe he was wearing. After that, they were transformed into a huge amount of vitality, which was then absorbed by him. With the time robe on him, Yi Shiwen could protect himself even without deliberately activating it. In terms of strength, Nightmare was indeed the most powerful enemy he had encountered. It was not something the 10 great divine kings could compare to. However, Yi Shiwen was not afraid at all. What's going on? Shock flashed across Nightmare's face, as if he did not expect Yi Shiwen to be this strong. He had returned all of Yi Shiwen's sword ki back to him. After accumulating to a certain extent, it was enough to destroy the world. Such an attack was actually easily blocked by Yi Shiwen. This kid is really dangerous. This sentence suddenly popped up in his mind. This blow had forced him to raise his evaluation of Yi Shiwen once again. Although he was only a king-ranked realm, he definitely could not be judged according to ordinary king-ranked realms. Even someone who had just entered the Quasi-Emperor realm definitely could not be so ferocious. Yi Shiwen's 6 paths of reincarnation fists seemed to penetrate the past and the future. Everything, including the myriad realms, had to be contained within the 6 paths of reincarnation, causing his entire person to look like he was walking in the long river of the past and the future. At this moment, Yi Shiwen had completely raised the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to a kind of extreme. The Azura Demon Lord once wanted to use the 6 paths of reincarnation to redefine the order of heaven and earth, which included almost all things in the world. The power of this fist technique could be imagined. He had completely integrated himself into the 6 paths of reincarnation and was invincible. Bang! Yi Shiwen punched out and directly collided with the demon sword that the Nightmare had grabbed from the sky. After a shocking collision sound, the demon sword shattered inch by inch in front of everyone on the spot. The demon sword was shattered and then turned into a sky full of demon aura that disappeared between heaven and earth. Some fragments even directly cut through the barrier of the small world and rushed out, causing some people watching from afar to be seriously injured on the spot. What's going on? The Nightmare was caught off guard by Yi Shiwen's attack. Even his arm was faintly numb, and he could not help but immediately widen his eyes. Although this was not a true godly weapon, it was the embodiment of the demon Tao and was much more powerful than ordinary godly weapons. How could it be shattered by Yi Shiwen's punch? Could it be that he had been hiding his strength previously? A dangerous guess flashed through the Nightmare's mind. If this was really the case, then it was too terrifying. Nightmare, I will now give you another chance. As long as you retreat, I cannot pursue your responsibility. Yi Shiwen said coldly as he stood with his hands behind his back. Giving me a chance? What a joke. If you want to defeat me, you can totally come and try. Nightmare looked coldly at Yi Shiwen. His eyes were incomparably cold. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen was likely an arrow at the end of its flight, which was why he said such words. He became even more insolent in his heart. Die! The heaven-devouring devil jar on the nightmare's head constantly spat out demon power into his body, making him even more tyrannical. A pitch-black demon sword appeared in his hand. This time, it was not transformed from Sword Dao Law, but a true supreme-grade godly weapon. It was an artifact that he had carried with him for many years. After so many years of sacrificial refining, it had far surpassed ordinary supreme-grade godly weapons and was comparable to the 10,000 spell roulette. Kacha! He casually brandished his long sword and slashed out. In an instant, the sword light was like a swimming dragon, constantly trembling in the sky. The earth-shattering sword chi almost crushed the entire small world. Even though many people were separated by a world, they could still feel the terror of that astonishing sword intent slashing down. Even if they were to be touched by just a little bit of it, they might not even have their bones left and be crushed into pieces. It's useless. You can't be stronger than me. Facing such a terrifying sword ray slashing down, Yi Shiwen did not care at all. He casually grabbed the sky full of golden light and caught the sword rays in his hand. Then, he directly crushed them. No matter what kind of terrifying attack Nightmare unleashed, it could not truly shake Yi Shiwen's defense. They were all dissolved and shattered. Even a portion of the energy was personally absorbed by Yi Shiwen. As time went by, Yi Shiwen became stronger and stronger. He grasped more and more of this realm's strength, becoming stronger and stronger. Stubborn fool! Yi Shiwen sneered. In his hand, the Dominator's sword intent appeared on the spot. It was as if all the Sword Dao monarchs in the world wanted to dominate everything in the world. This terrifying power instantly exploded. Before the Nightmare's sword rays could reach Yi Shiwen, they were all annihilated. Accurately speaking, it should be completely self-destructing. In front of Yi Shiwen's Dominator's sword intent, the Nightmare's sword rays had no ability to resist at all. In ancient times, there was a saying that the emperor wanted his subjects to die, and the subjects had no choice but to die. This was the logic. Yi Shiwen's Dominator's sword intent was getting stronger and stronger. All the sword rays didn't dare to be presumptuous in front of him. There was a spiritual existence in the unseen world controlling them. However, Nightmare was unmoved. He said, "You used me to cultivate, but you don't know that I can also use you to cultivate. My Sword Dao is extremely condensed. Every time it is defeated, it is buried in the process of continuous reconstruction. It will also absorb all rivers into the sea and become stronger. After experiencing defeat and destruction, it will become even stronger." The instant the sword aura shattered, Nightmare condensed an even stronger sword aura in his hand. He wasn't lying, nor was he trying to scare Yi Shiwen. Instead, he was really getting stronger and stronger. No matter how much sword aura you have, it will all be destroyed. If the Emperor wants his subjects to die, the subjects have no choice but to die. Your sword aura has to submit in front of my Dominator's sword intent. Yi Shiwen constantly urged the Dominator's sword intent, fusing with the world. At this moment, he was like a true ruler of the world, exuding an unparalleled might. All his enemies had to submit to him, and he had to destroy them. There were no exceptions. Both sides were in a frenzied confrontation amidst the continuous creation and destruction of the sword aura. This made everyone tremble in fear. The situation has actually reversed. Many people couldn't help but be terrified. Seeing this scene, many people had never imagined that Yi Shiwen, who was forced into a corner, could actually erupt with such strength. No, the so-called being forced into a corner at the beginning was just them being confused. The actual situation wasn't like this at all. Could it be that Senior Nightmare is really going to be defeated by Yi Shiwen? Chapter 2771. That's impossible. Isn't Senior Nightmare constantly regenerating? His Sword Dao is constantly being destroyed and reborn. It will also become stronger. With time, he will be able to reverse the situation. Someone was also in disbelief. He's just an arrow at the end of its flight. He's just an arrow at the end of its flight. It's not that easy to be reborn using the sword principle. Every time he's reborn, he needs to have a certain level of comprehension towards the sword principle. Only by constantly comprehending the sword principle will he be able to make continuous breakthroughs. Nirvana rebirth? It sounds easy, but how many people have managed to do that? Everyone deeply agreed. If Nirvana rebirth was so easy, then the Phoenix race's Nirvana rebirth technique would not be so respected and famous. However, even if the Phoenix race's Nirvana rebirth technique could become stronger each time, it was unheard of to be able to rebirth so many times in such a short period of time. To be able to reach such a stage, it was all due to coincidence. Many people had already achieved great enlightenment. Under the premise of great enlightenment, they shattered the appearance and reconstructed the true body. However, Nightmare didn't seem to have such a scene. Therefore, some people also judged that it might be an arrow at the end of its flight. There was still some truth to this argument. Although they weren't strong, many principles were the same. I want to see how many more times you can reconstruct. Yi Shiwen was only disdainful. His eyes flickered with light. This time, he wanted to make these people feel pain. Yes, it wasn't just Nightmare. Behind this incident, it was a sign that those famous old Undyings wanted to return and seize power. According to the tacit understanding between the various races, these people who had already stepped into Quasi-Emperor were not allowed to interfere with ordinary matters. Moreover, ordinary Quasi-Emperors weren't interested in participating in these matters. It was simply a waste of time. As long as one became an emperor, they would naturally be the ruler of the world. Why must they roll around in the flood? However, this didn't mean that they weren't interested in controlling the world. Perhaps many people were ambitious, and nightmares were only the vanguard. If this vanguard didn't come looking for trouble, Yi Shiwen would turn a blind eye. However, since trouble came looking for him, he couldn't endure it anymore. He had to let some people know that he wasn't a pushover that could be easily dealt with. There were too many things involved in this matter. So, Yi Shiwen was too lazy to care about them. The best way was naturally to hurt them, and let them understand that he was at least on the same level as them. Yi Shiwen. Nightmare suddenly roared and stopped extending his sword aura. He could already feel that he was completely suppressed. It was no longer possible for him to suppress Yi Shiwen with his sword Dao. Above his head, the heaven-devouring evil jar was thick with demonic qi. It constantly spewed out demonic qi, which instantly formed a huge word. Devil. Once the word devil appeared, Yi Shiwen felt that the many martial arts techniques in his body that were connected to the demon race were suddenly suppressed. The entire word devil transformed into a huge gate that was tens of thousands of meters tall, piercing the sky. Above this huge gate, countless demonic qi circulated. Yi Shiwen didn't know what kind of secret technique it was evolving. This is actually the word devil. The heaven-devouring evil jar actually fermented this word. Yi Shiwen's pupils shrank slightly. He didn't expect Nightmare's heaven-devouring evil jar to have such a heaven-defying thing. No, he instantly thought of a legend. It was rumored that when the heaven-devouring evil jar was forged, it used the word devil as its foundation, and fused with supreme divine materials to finally forge it. What was the concept of the word devil? It was the origin of all the demon race, and everything related to the demon race in the universe. It was precisely because of this word that everything evolved. This was also the origin of the demon race. Since ancient times, only the original devil demon king of the original devil race could evolve this word. And this heaven-devouring evil jar was the original devil demon king's personal Dao tool. Back then, the original devil demon king relied on the heaven-devouring evil jar to be invincible. However, he later perished in the war against the heavens, and the heaven-devouring evil jar disappeared, finally falling into the hands of Nightmare. In that case, this Nightmare was very likely an expert of the original Devil Clan. Otherwise, with the heaven-devouring devil jar in his hands for so many years, with the original Devil Clan's foundation and strength, it was impossible for them not to snatch it back. The only possibility was that this Nightmare was an expert of the original devil race. Thinking of this, he could understand many things, such as why the Nightmare personally took action. Although the heaven-devouring evil jar was damaged and suffered heavy losses, just the word devil was incomparably precious. If the ancient legend was not wrong, this devil character wasn't a Tao rune condensed by later generations. It was naturally formed. In the myriad worlds, the devil Tao was still flourishing. It was unknown how many experts and all their Taos were born from this devil character. This ancient word was like the words human, demon, and dragon. Even an emperor lord of a race could not condense it. It contained the great fortune of the race. It was only possible if one person could evolve all the great Taos of the race. However, even an emperor lord could not do this. The only possibility was natural evolution. Back then, the original devil demon king of the original devil race obtained this devil word and achieved Tao in one move. He conquered the world of the devil race and unified the devil race. Later, he used this devil word as the foundation to refine the heaven-devouring evil jar. Only with this devil word as the foundation could the heaven-devouring evil jar dare to call itself heaven-devouring. It was precisely because of this that the devil word was even more terrifying. It was born with the great fortune of a race. The stronger the race, the stronger it would be. If it was in the hands of a demon king, it could only be compared to the words human, demon, dragon, and phoenix. Its power was almost unimaginable. No one could resist a race. However, in the hands of a nightmare, it was naturally not as powerful as in the hands of an emperor lord. Even so, its power was still shocking. The devil word. It's actually the devil word. The ancient devil word has reappeared in the world. Many people couldn't help but exclaim, especially the experts of the devil race. They almost prostrated themselves in worship. The power of the word devil was simply unimaginable. Everyone could feel a kind of origin calling out to them. In this devil word, it contained endless great Taos of the devil race. Whoever could obtain it would almost be the next original devil demon king. Many people's eyes flickered with boundless light. This word had endless magic power. No one could resist it. It was even more desirable than a Tao tool. For example, in the human race, there were the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. In addition to Emperor Qin, there were 9 emperor lords. There were at least 9 Tao tools. However, there was only one human word that was related to the race. Its preciousness could be imagined. Speaking of which, probably only words like chaos, time, and space could firmly suppress the devil word. It was only possible when it involved the foundation of the great Taos of the universe. However, ancient words of that level had not appeared for many years. Once they appeared, there would be a bloodbath. Even if one could snatch the words pill or tool, it was enough to obtain the Tao. The devil word was the origin of all devils. It was even more exaggerated than Yi Shiwen's Dominator Sword Intense Suppression on Sword Tao. It was almost invincible. At this moment, the nightmare had almost become the sky of all the devils in the world. No one was not under its jurisdiction. Yi Shiwen's body froze because he discovered that his 6 paths of reincarnation fist and demon wings and other devil race martial arts were immediately suppressed. He could not use them at all. Whether it was the 6 paths of reincarnation fist or the demon wings, they were the main forces he relied on in battle. The moment the devil word appeared, it would at least cripple a third of Yi Shiwen's combat strength. Moreover, everything he cultivated and learned was actually starting to fly out of his body and be absorbed by the devil word. Because it originated from the devil word, it was just returning to the body now. Seal. The seal word in Yi Shiwen's body burst with dazzling light, sealing his body. At this moment, Yi Shiwen completely understood why Nightmare was able to evolve the Devil Tao version of the 3,000 Great Ways. It turned out that it was relying on the word devil. Not only could it benefit from being in a favorable position, by relying on the word devil, its cultivation of Devil Tao martial arts would definitely progress by leaps and bounds. In addition, with this word devil, it was unknown how many people's Devil Tao martial arts he would absorb. It had probably been a long time since the Nightmare obtained the heaven-devouring Devil Jar. If it wasn't for his great ambition to construct the Devil Dao's version of the 3,000 Great Daos and become a sovereign emperor, if he only cultivated one Dao, who knew how terrifying his cultivation would be now, he would probably be truly close to the realm of Dao. Even though he ambitiously constructed the Devil Dao's version of the 3,000 Great Daos and spent a huge amount of time, he also directly stepped into the quasi-emperor realm. One could imagine how terrifying this devil word was. Yi Shiwen, I also didn't expect you to have such a deep understanding of devil race martial arts. It just so happens that the more powerful the devil race martial arts you cultivate, the more you will be suppressed. Huh? Nightmare laughed loudly. This was the power of the devil word. If it was a devil race quasi-emperor, 70 to 80% of his combat strength would have been crippled. Even if Yi Shiwen wasn't like this, his combat strength would still be largely crippled. This was enough for him to quickly recover and counterattack. I'll accept your 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Ha ha. A sinister smile appeared on the Nightmare's face. The demonic aura was dense. At this moment, he truly looked like a true devil race. No, there's another martial art. He could sense that other than the 6 paths of reincarnation fist and some minor devil Dao martial arts, there was another martial art that wasn't inferior to the 6 paths of reincarnation fist being summoned. No matter what it is, absorb it all from me. Chapter 2772. Nightmare's face revealed a confident look. Once the word demon appeared, it was naturally invincible. Especially if the opponent also cultivated the demon race's techniques, it would be completely restrained. Yi Shiwen only felt the demon path in his body begin to tremble continuously and become completely unstable. Especially the 6 paths of reincarnation fist and their demon wings, which had already come into contact with the origin of the word demon, were fundamentally suppressed even more. What a joke! You want to snatch my martial arts? What a joke! Yi Shiwen smiled coldly and roared. In an instant, the world resounded with a mantra, as if countless deities were chanting at the same time. There was a mystical scene everywhere. Yi Shiwen's heart stirred slightly. He thought of an even crazier idea. He directly snatched the word demon. With the help of the word demon, his 6 paths of reincarnation fist would soon be completely accomplished, and the 6 paths would become one. And the demon wings could also evolve to the final step, the wings of time. At that time, it would truly be accomplished. Yi Shiwen casually grabbed, and a shocking sword intent formed from the void. Between heaven and earth, there were sword Dao characters everywhere, shining with dazzling light. And in his body, the time robe directly launched to resist the attraction of the word demon. It instantly suppressed it, and the influence of the word demon on him was immediately isolated. Although the word demon was known as the origin of all demons, it could not compete with a simple Dao tool in terms of power. Today, I will give you an unforgettable lesson. I will let you know that not everyone can be casually bullied by you. Yi Shiwen said coldly, I will take your word demon. Heaven has placed the word demon by your side for so long, and you have not been able to comprehend it. Heaven has given you such an opportunity, but you have not been able to achieve Dao. It is conceivable that this thing is not fated with you. You might as well give it to me for safekeeping. Everyone couldn't help but gasp when they heard this. Yi Shiwen was so ambitious. He actually wanted to snatch the word demon from the Nightmare's hand. This was something that no one had thought of. Originally, the Nightmare was already strong enough. Behind him stood a demon royal that had once produced an emperor. Moreover, compared to most of the demon royal families, it was even more ancient and suffocating. Who would dare to have such thoughts? However, thinking about it carefully, what Yi Shiwen said was not necessarily unreasonable. The heavens had placed the word devil in his hands for so many years, but he had not been able to obtain it. It was a complete waste. Nightmare's expression finally changed. Yi Shiwen's words happened to poke the most guilty spot in his heart. The word devil had not been able to attain enlightenment in his hands for so many years. This was a problem with his lifespan. He had once fought with the Qin Emperor, but the Qin Emperor had already attained the Dao for so many years and had disappeared for who knew how many years, while he had only just taken this step. He had just become a quasi-emperor. Although the ambition of the 3,000 demonic sects was too great, delaying his progress, the real reason for this was that he was not strong enough. Occasionally, he would think about similar questions. Could it be that he really didn't have that kind of aptitude? It was just that he forcefully suppressed it. But now, Yi Shiwen had lifted it up alive. For him, this was simply a slap in the face on the spot. Cut the crap. Seeing that his word devil had not truly been able to take down Yi Shiwen, Nightmare could not care so much anymore and stored the word devil back into his body. In an instant, his entire body was covered by endless demonic qi. His figure grew larger and larger, and compared to before, he was many times stronger. This was using the word devil to stimulate the potential in his body. It could greatly stimulate his strength in a short period of time, but if he could not defeat Yi Shiwen in a short period of time, then all of this would become a burden. Kacha! Suddenly, there was another sound. Nightmare grabbed a strand of sword chi from the void, which turned into an astonishing sword light and wandered around. This was an unimaginably terrifying power. Under Nightmare's full display, everyone could feel the sword chi rushing out from the small world and spreading out. Everyone could feel the terrifying sword intent of the demon's sword. They did not dare to approach at all, otherwise they would not even have a corpse left. This was a collision of quasi-emperor levels. It was frightening and frightening. This time, Nightmare could be said to have used all his trump cards in order to eradicate Yi Shiwen. Originally, he thought that Yi Shiwen could be easily dealt with, so he had never thought of killing him. As long as he suppressed Yi Shiwen, suppressed the thorn, and established his prestige, many things would be much easier to handle. Now, it seemed that this thorn was not as simple as being difficult to deal with. He was simply about to make a comeback. Under such circumstances, how could he still feel the slightest bit of mercy? Sure enough, Senior Nightmare is a little more powerful. The word devil itself involves the origin of the demon race. If used well, he can even borrow the power of the entire demon race's destiny. He is simply invincible, as expected of a senior who has been famous for many years. Back then, he was the head of the 10 great divine kings. Now that his cultivation has improved further in the myriad worlds, how many dare to say that they can firmly suppress him? With the word devil in his hands, there is a possibility that it will shine brilliantly in the future. Everyone discussed spiritedly. They were already completely frightened by Nightmare, who had fused the word devil. Such power even made them tremble in fear. Then come at me. Let me see how strong you are. Yi Shiwen roared loudly. Waves of terrifying power also seeped out of his body. Martial Dao incarnation was absorbed into his body, and his power increased by several times. Fighting against Nightmare, who had already completely demonized, his aura was not at a disadvantage at all. Everyone did not expect that there would be such a change. Originally, they thought that Nightmare's methods were already heaven-defying. Even so, he still borrowed the power of the word devil. However, Yi Shiwen did not have the power of the word devil origin to borrow. He was actually still hiding such a trump card, which continuously exceeded everyone's expectations. Under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen made the first move. He did not wait for Nightmare to attack and directly attacked himself. 6 paths of Reincarnation Fist, Sky Flipping Seal, Dominator's Sword Intent, Thunder Emperor Heavenly Cannon, and many other techniques swept out. Instantly, his body seemed to have split into thousands of clones in the world. Every clone was using a type of martial arts. Every type of martial arts had earth-shattering power and involved different paths. Being able to use one of these martial arts was enough to become one of the few experts in the myriad worlds. However, now, Yi Shiwen was using all of them. The power was even more tyrannical and terrifying. Rumble, Nightmare did not hesitate and immediately used the 3,000 Devil Dao. 3,000 clones split in the sky and rushed out to fight against Yi-1. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone was completely dumbfounded. The dazzling light from the collision of both parties had completely covered everything. Those below the Divine King level could no longer see what was happening even if they opened their heavenly eye. Everything was too chaotic. Time, space, primal chaos, everything was twisted together. Everything was in chaos, and no one knew exactly what the situation was like. This, Junior Brother Yi is fine, said the Flame Master as he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He did not even dare to close his eyes. He could miss many things in an instant. Although he was a divine king and could see a little, it was just a little. The movements of both parties were already so fast that it was difficult for him to capture. Previously, he only felt that Yi Shiwen's cultivation should have improved further. However, he never expected that he was not just a little stronger. It was simply incomparable. Yi Shiwen's combat power had completely surpassed the Divine King level. He had reached a level that no one in their hidden valley had reached. In terms of growth speed, he had also never seen it before. Many people could not see it clearly. They could only vaguely see that even the formation set up by the Emperor King was under extremely huge pressure. It began to shake violently. The layers of enchantments were like a piece of paper facing a strong gale. They were about to be blown apart. It was as if they would completely shatter in the next second. This was an unprecedented battle, especially after the quasi-emperors followed the tacit rules and no longer appeared in front of Middle Regan. They did not know how long it had been since they saw a battle of this level. Bang! 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 The battle inside was getting more and more intense. However, the immortal Copper King could clearly see what was happening. He was about to enter that realm and was naturally different from others. Therefore, he did not take Yi Shiwen seriously from the beginning. The battle between Yi Shiwen and the Pure Moon King had shocked many people, but it did not scare him. For him, no matter how strong Yi Shiwen was, that was all. It was impossible for Yi Shiwen to pose a threat to him. However, he soon discovered that he was wrong. Not only could Yi Shiwen pose a threat to him, but Yi Shiwen was completely above him. In that small world, Yi Shiwen was getting stronger and stronger, to the point that he felt shocked. On Yi Shiwen's body, a robe had appeared. It was flowing with the light of time and condensed into crystals. It crystallized the surrounding space. It was not an ordinary crystal, but the crystal of time. If ordinary people could get a little bit of it, they could break through the door of cultivating the way of time and become a powerhouse in the world. That is the time robe. The immortal Copper King suddenly took a deep breath and said. He suddenly remembered. 3 years had passed. The matter of Yi Shiwen wearing the time robe and fighting against the spirit of the Dao tool was no longer a secret among the higher-ups. After all, there were too many terrifying forces in the coalition army. There were also many people who recognized the time robe. Chapter 2773. After all, the time robe was too famous back then. Even if only a few people recognized it, the matter of the time robe would quickly spread to the higher-ups. After all, there was no need to keep this matter a secret. Or rather, there was no need to keep it a secret for Yi Shiwen. Coupled with the infinite pain sword in his hand, Yi Shiwen's strength was simply unimaginable. At this time, he suddenly came to his senses. Everyone thought that they had valued Yi Shiwen enough, but at the same time, they had underestimated Yi Shiwen. For an ordinary divine king in the king-ranked realm, no matter how high his status was, it seemed to be enough. However, was Yi Shiwen an ordinary person? Obviously, he was not an ordinary person. The infinite pain sword in his hand had once been witnessed by the Golden Dragon King defeating the broken Tianqi Emperor's sword, and Yi Shiwen himself was wearing the time robe and withstood the attacks of 2 Dao artifacts alone. Such strength, no matter how he did it, was enough to make many people tremble in fear. It was not a problem for an ordinary quasi-emperor to rely on the broken Dao artifacts to attack him. However, if they thought that victory was in their grasp, then they were really seeking their own death. Obviously, many people were already confused by the appearance of a late-stage king-ranked realm martial artist. Although he was only in the late-stage king-ranked realm, he was already one of the few experts in the universe. However, compared to the strength that Yi Shiwen displayed now, it was still not worth mentioning. Under the protection of the time robe, Yi Shiwen had no fear at all. He could exert his strength to the fullest and attack with all his strength. Even the nightmare's biggest reliance, The erosion of the demon word could not affect Yi Shiwen, who was under the protection of the time robe. Under the bombardment of the power of time, the nightmare retreated step by step. His attacks could not cause a fundamental impact on Yi Shiwen. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen's attacks could cause a huge threat to him. Bang! Finally, while everyone was still in shock, an earth-shattering sound came from the small world. Then, everyone only saw that the originally majestic nightmare was directly blown away. Its body was trembling, and a mouthful of blood was spurted out. Only the immortal Copper King saw clearly what exactly happened. At that instant, Yi Shiwen forcefully penetrated the seal of the demon character and bombarded the nightmare with the power of time. If the nightmare didn't block the attack with the devouring demon jar at the crucial moment, the nightmare would have perished. Yi Shiwen had unleashed the terrifying power of the time robe in that attack. He finally understood the rumor that Yi Shiwen's time robe was capable of contending against a revived Taoist tool. It was said that Yi Shiwen's time robe could contend against a Dao tool. It should be known that under normal circumstances, unless a sovereign emperor made a move, the power that a revived Dao weapon could display under the control of an artifact spirit would far surpass that of an ordinary divine king or quasi-emperor. However, Yi Shiwen was able to contend against two supreme Dao tools while wearing the time robe. Although he wasn't present at the scene and didn't really see what happened, he seemed to be able to make some guesses now. Originally, he was on the periphery. He only saw Yi Shiwen holding the Avicii sword and restraining the myriad worlds diagram and the Emperor's corpse. Impossible! How could my sky-devouring evil jar be pierced through? The nightmare retreated step by step. The peerless elegance on his face had dissipated, leaving only a bit of fear and terror. This was his greatest reliance. Hence, he panicked after being pierced. As long as he had this trump card, he was never afraid of anyone. It was enough to protect himself. Now that Yi Shiwen used another Dao tool to suppress it, his weakness was immediately revealed. The sky-devouring evil jar was powerful, but it was only a broken Dao tool. Compared to the complete time robe, it immediately fell into a disadvantage. So, this is what you're relying on. I've already told you that the word devil is nothing in your hands. But you don't believe me. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and directly rushed up to him. He then swung his fist again. The power of the 6 paths of reincarnation shook the universe and shattered the world. The nightmare, who was already at a disadvantage, was sent flying by Yi Shiwen's punch. Dense cracks began to appear all over his body. Blood splattered out, and he flew out instantly like a meteor streaking across the sky. However, he was much more terrifying than a meteor. When he smashed down, the entire small world shook and the mountains and rivers shook. Since the demon character is useless in your hands, why don't you hand it to me as a punishment for attacking me this time? Yi Shiwen shouted and suddenly grabbed with his big hand. Immediately, a sky-devouring aura appeared and grabbed towards the nightmare on the spot. The Emperor source in Yi Shiwen's body was madly burning, providing energy for the time robe. With Yi Shiwen's strength, it was originally impossible to crush the nightmare with the sky-devouring evil jar. Even an ordinary quasi-emperor could not do it. He could only borrow the power of the time robe. Hence, the consumption of the Emperor source could be imagined. If it was just the divine source, it would probably not be enough. Don't even think about it. The nightmare spat out a mouthful of blood essence and blew out a mouthful of essence chi. Under the influence of the demon character, this mouthful of essence chi transformed into tens of thousands of demons that rushed towards Yi Shiwen. He leaped up from the ground and kept retreating. He wanted to buy time for himself to recover. From the beginning, Yi Shiwen had steadily gained the upper hand and the initiative. He had to buy time. Only by recovering to his peak could he regain the initiative of the battle. Do you still want to struggle? Even if you struggle, it's useless. Yi Shiwen looked calm. The more critical the situation was, the calmer he became. He didn't need the help of the enlightening mind ancient tree to calm his mind. He also understood that the more critical the situation was, the calmer he needed to be. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to say anything if someone turned the tables on him. Yi Shiwen's big hand crushed the tens of thousands of demons that the nightmare spat out. These demons might be a threat to others, but they were nothing to Yi Shiwen. He directly evolved the heavenly way of the 6 paths of reincarnation and absorbed all of them. Not only did they not hurt Yi Shiwen, but they also increased his strength. This time, Yi Shiwen had made up his mind to snatch this demon character. As long as he had this demon character, the 6 paths of reincarnation fist and demon wings would not be a problem. How could he miss such a good opportunity? Even if he cultivated other demonic martial arts in the future, he could easily cultivate them to the great completion. He would be invincible. The nightmare's face revealed a fierce expression, but it was useless. Its fierceness could not scare Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen, you dare? If you lay your hands on the demon character, the demon race will chase after you for generations. The nightmare roared. Aha! Then let them come. I'll kill as many as they come. Yi Shiwen did not care at all. He would not be scared by the nightmare's words. He only used his full strength and grabbed the snake with his big hand. Countless essence chi surged. In an instant, he actually grabbed the demon character. Boom! Seeing that it was about to be grabbed, the heaven-devouring demonic jar began to counterattack. Countless demonic auras formed a shocking attack and counterattacked Yi Shiwen. Wave after wave of terrifying power went straight for Yi Shiwen's head. Yi Shiwen sneered slightly. He immediately ignited the Emperor's source. The surging power instantly boiled and turned into the power of time, suppressing the heaven-devouring demonic jar on the spot. Yi Shiwen would not personally suppress the heaven-devouring demonic jar, but the time robe could. There was no need to worry at all. Boom! The terrifying collision was still in progress. However, the heaven-devouring demonic jar's counterattack was quickly suppressed. It could not stop Yi Shiwen from grabbing the demon character. Yi Shiwen, how dare you? The nightmare's eyes were wide open. In his pair of demonic eyes, tears of blood actually began to flow out. He was infuriated to the limit by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was trying to dig out his roots. His heart was bleeding. Not only did he not gain any advantage in this return, but he was also seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen is so daring. Many experts of the original demon clan roared and clamored. For them, the demon character was naturally extremely important. It was especially related to their heaven-devouring demonic jar. It was just that the nightmare was using it now. If the demon character was taken away, the heaven-devouring demonic jar would still be the heaven-devouring demonic jar. However, its magic would be greatly reduced. This was also because the heaven-devouring demonic jar was broken. That was why the demon character was revealed. Otherwise, if the heaven-devouring demonic jar was intact, the demon character would be directly imprisoned inside. It would be impossible for it to appear, and they would not have to worry about Yi Shiwen taking it away. Damn it! Damn it! Many experts of the original demon clan also opened their eyes wide. They were flustered and exasperated. They did not expect that Yi Shiwen would actually dare to do this. He did not care about the original demon clan at all. This time, the nightmare hurriedly led the vanguard. Among them, the experts of the original demon clan wanted to lead the allied forces and seize more power. Moreover, the nightmare was also invited back by them. Who would have thought that they would really suffer a double loss this time? Why wouldn't I dare? Yi Shiwen roared and increased the output of his spiritual power. He grabbed the demon character in his hand and fiercely pulled it out. The heaven-devouring demonic jar fiercely counterattacked. It was good, but it was useless. Under the suppression of the time robe, it had no way to resist Yi Shiwen. Although the demon character was the key to its formation, the demon character was a pre-celestial ancient character. It could not be truly melted. It could use it, but it could not fuse with it. Hence, it was still caught by Yi Shiwen. That demon character broke free from the restraint of the heaven-devouring demonic jar and also wanted to escape. However, how could Yi Shiwen let it escape? The seal character shone brilliantly and directly suppressed the struggling demon character. He succeeded. He actually succeeded. How daring! Immortal Copper King said in a daze. Chapter 2774. Before the battle started, no one would have thought that Yi Shiwen would actually want to snatch the devil character, let alone do it. He was simply lawless. The balance and tacit understanding between the various forces was completely destroyed by him alone. That was why the older generation was most annoyed by these people. It was because they would always easily break all the rules and then re-establish their own rules. Such people were rare, but every one of them had caused a huge uproar. It's over, it's over. He actually dared to snatch the devil character. Many experts of the original demon clan completely collapsed. The consequences of the devil character being snatched was far more serious than the failure of seizing power and the defeat of the nightmare. But at this time, who could stop the ferocious Yi Shiwen? Even a quasi-emperor could not stop him. At this time, they just remembered that there was a price to pay for doing things. When they were planning, they had already treated Yi Shiwen as a piece of pork on the chopping board and did not think of so many things. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly. He did not care about the nightmare that was constantly wailing. This battle could be considered as collecting some interest just to activate the time robe. He had consumed more than 100,000 Emperor Source. Now that he had less than 1 million Emperor Source, he naturally had to collect some interest, and this devil character was just right. Yi Shiwen's gaze swept across the surroundings. His sharp gaze could see through people's hearts, and even directly swept into the hearts of the people outside the pocket world. Many people lowered their heads and did not dare to look at Yi Shiwen. Although it was the era of the allied forces, there were still dirty fights between the various clans and forces. It was unknown how many people hoped that Yi Shiwen would die tragically. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly, then stepped out of the pocket world and appeared in the encampment of the Hidden Valley. Yi Shiwen, you can't snatch the devil character. Immortal Copper King immediately stepped forward and said. Although Yi Shiwen's ferocious might was at its peak, this matter was of great importance, and he could not ignore it. It's just collecting some interest. Could it be that Immortal Copper King wants to stop such a small matter? Or are you already so biased? Yi Shiwen said without giving face to Immortal Copper King. Yi Shiwen's tone was the same as Yi Shiwen's. It was just that in the eyes of everyone, he was extremely arrogant, but now everyone felt that it was very normal. Although Yi Shiwen was only a late-stage king-ranked realm martial artist, no one dared to treat him as an ordinary king-ranked realm martial artist. Even a regular quasi-emperor would not be this ferocious. Furthermore, he had a Dao tool with him. Unless a sovereign emperor descended, who would dare to say that they could suppress him? Of course not. It's just that the devil word has too many implications. You can make other requests. I think the Origin Demon Clan will definitely agree. Immortal Copper King promptly said. At this time, he could only agree on behalf of the Origin Demon Clan. Yi Shiwen looked at him with a faint smile, then said, Do you think I will still believe such words? This time, I don't care if the original Demon Clan or whoever is behind this. If you want me to hand it over, don't even think about it. The word demon is useless in the hands of the original Demon Clan. Instead, it's just a waste. You, Immortal Copper King, didn't expect that Yi Shiwen wouldn't give him any face and directly retorted. Do you think you don't have to pay any price for doing something wrong? Yi Shiwen looked at Immortal Copper King and said, If anyone has an opinion, you can come and find me. Wanting Yi Shiwen to spit out the meat he swallowed? How could that be possible? Don't even think about it. After speaking, Yi Shiwen directly entered the Hidden Valley encampment. With this devil word, his 6 paths of Reincarnation Fist and Demon Wings would soon be able to reach great success. At that time, even if his realm didn't increase, it would be enough to increase his battle strength by another level. Something big has happened. This time, something really big is going to happen. A clash between the old and the new. This time, Yi Shiwen clearly didn't give any face. Not only did he not give any face to the nightmare, he even swept away the face of those old seniors. I'm afraid he won't let this go. Is this Yi Shiwen seeking his own death? By doing this, he has violated the taboo of the king bestowal sects. Even the martial sect that has always protected him has nothing to say this time. Stealing someone's inheritance, especially when it's related to a Dao artifact, is even more of a taboo. Many people immediately broke out into discussion. When Yi Shiwen was around, they didn't have the guts to say anything. However, now that Yi Shiwen had left, they naturally had no scruples. Even the Flame Lord, who was already very used to Yi Shiwen's unexpected actions, felt that he couldn't handle it this time. In the past, Yi Shiwen only offended those divine kings, and they had to give face to the Hidden Valley and be somewhat fearful. However, now, Yi Shiwen had offended the high and mighty quasi-emperors. In the hearts of those invincible quasi-emperors, what was the Hidden Valley? It wasn't worthy to be mentioned in the same breath as them. Only those inheritances that had produced emperor lords had the true confidence to face these quasi-emperors. Not only did they have quasi-emperors overseeing them, but they also had many trump cards that could deal with quasi-emperors. Compared to them, the Hidden Valley was really too weak. In particular, Yi Shiwen had offended the original demon clan this time. Moreover, it was a royal clan. They really wouldn't rest until one of them was dead. Including the Dragon Island and the others that he had offended previously, the number of people that Yi Shiwen had offended in the myriad worlds was not small. "Brother Yi, I'm afraid things aren't going to be good this time," the Flame Lord said worriedly. "Brother, you're probably frightened by the original demon clan. In fact, there's nothing to be afraid of," Yi Shiwen said with a smile. "With the devil character in my hand, my cultivation will rise to the next level. When that time comes, I won't have to be too careful. Brother, you don't have to worry about them targeting the Hidden Valley. As long as I'm still alive, they won't dare to attack the Hidden Valley. Otherwise, they won't be able to bear it if I imitate them and attack the original demon clan." How can I not understand this? I'm more worried about you, Brother Yi. The matter of the Heavenly Clan hasn't been settled yet, but you've offended the Dragon Island and the original demon clan. I'm afraid that it'll be bad for you in the future, the Flame Lord said. He was naturally worried in his heart. If he had offended Yi Shiwen, he would have personally come to apologize. That would have been considered giving the other party enough face. However, Yi Shiwen had offended them. Yi Shiwen said, "It's not that I don't know what brother is talking about. It's just that the arrow on the bowstring has to be released. They see me as a fish on the chopping block. How can I not resist? Although it's important to defy the heavens, we shouldn't act according to their temperament. We must follow their rhythm." Yi Shiwen also had his own considerations in his heart. In the end, it was only one word: deterrence. After today's matter, even if those people hated him to the core, they should understand that he wasn't a pushover. They would certainly be careful before they attacked him next time. If they were to target him next time, it wouldn't be as simple as this time. They would be well prepared. So, they would certainly launch a thunderous attack. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't worried. With the Emperor's Source and the Tao Fruit, Yi Shiwen's cultivation would advance further in a short period of time. At that time, it would be hard to say who would be the one to deal with who. The Flame Lord sighed. How could he not understand such a logic? Once a new force rose and destroyed the old forces, it would inevitably cause a violent backlash. This time, it was just a small counterattack. However, he immediately became firm. This time, he had no other choice. He had to suppress Yi Shiwen's side. After this, whether the Hidden Valley could achieve invincibility in one fell swoop, and whether they could be compared with those emperor inheritances that had produced emperor-level inheritances would depend on Yi Shiwen. The Hidden Valley had been developing steadily all these years and had indeed accumulated a lot of strength. However, it was impossible to rely on them if they wanted to advance further. They could only rely on Yi Shiwen. In this world, development was like rowing a boat against the current. If one didn't advance, one would fall back. How could they not understand this logic? Not to mention, he also had a huge ambition in his heart. If things went well, and Yi Shiwen attained Tao one day, wouldn't their Hidden Valley also transform into an emperor-level inheritances that had produced emperor-level inheritances? Looking at the current prestige of the martial arts Grandmaster Dragon Island in the heavens and realms, one could understand how great the temptation was. No one could resist the temptation of ruling the world. However, it was impossible for him to achieve all of this by himself. Only Yi Shiwen, and only with Yi Shiwen's help, could achieve this. In other words, if the Hidden Valley wanted to advance further and could be compared with the martial arts Grandmaster Dragon Island in the future, they could only rely on Yi Shiwen. Having the potential to become an emperor was not something that could be easily said. It was not something that a small force could boast about. There might not be many people who could obtain universal recognition in thousands of years. Having the possibility of becoming an emperor was enough. It was enough for them to take a gamble. The strength that Yi Shiwen displayed now was not inferior to many emperor-level inheritances that had yet to attain Dao. In fact, he was even stronger than some emperor-level inheritances. For such a talent to appear in the Hidden Valley, they had almost exhausted their luck. How could they dare to hope that there would be another one? If they did not take advantage of the heavens, they would be harmed instead. Yi Shiwen glanced at the Lord of Flames. His target had never been the hidden old guys, but the Inverse Emperor who was about to attain Dao. The Inverse Emperor was his biggest opponent. As for the hidden old guys, it was fine if they hid and did not oppose him. However, if they dared to jump out, he would deal with them one by one. Before that, the most important thing for him was to improve his strength so that he could cope with stronger challenges. Junior Brother Yi, no matter what, the Hidden Valley will definitely stand on your side. If you need anything, just let us know. The Lord of Flames sighed and firmed his determination. Now, it was impossible for them to stay out of this matter. They could only follow Yi Shiwen to the end. Senior brother, don't worry. With me around, they won't be able to play any tricks. Now, I have to go into closed-door training to digest the word devil. I will have to trouble senior brother to help me block them. Before I come out of closed-door training, I won't see anyone. However, if a quasi-emperor really comes in, senior brother, please don't stop them. Let me deal with them. Yi Shiwen said. Junior brother, don't worry. I know how to handle this matter. Chapter 2775. In the Hidden Valley Station, there was naturally no lack of places for Yi Shiwen to practice in. Yi Shiwen began to enter the closed-door training state after he had arranged a matrix. He didn't have the protection of the enlightening mind ancient tree this time. However, he didn't have anything to be afraid of since he had reached this stage. Even the heart devil wouldn't dare to approach him. Otherwise, it would be suppressed to death. His 6 paths of reincarnation fist and demon wings had already been cultivated to the peak, just a little bit more to achieve great success. Once he cultivated to the point of great success, the power would naturally increase to a higher level. And not only that, the weight of the word demon itself was an ancient word that automatically evolved from the Great Tao. It contained countless laws of the Great Tao, which could further comprehend the Great Tao. It was of great benefit to his cultivation in a short period of time. This was also an important reason why Yi Shiwen did not care about the controversy and snatched back the word demon. The first thing he started to comprehend was the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Yi Shiwen released the word demon. He was not afraid that it would run away because it was forcibly suppressed by the time robe. As long as the time robe was not messed up, the word demon could not escape from his palm. Behind Yi Shiwen, the fist intent of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist began to rise slowly. 6 paths of reincarnation evolved behind him. However, this 6 paths of reincarnation was still somewhat chaotic and had yet to fully evolve. There was still a certain degree of disparity between the fist intent displayed by Yi Mo and Yi Shiwen. Although it was shocking enough for him to be able to display the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to this extent at his age, it was far from enough for Yi Shiwen. He needed to become stronger to cope with the greater disturbances in the future. Yi Shiwen immersed himself in it, and the wheel of the 6 paths of reincarnation began to slowly rotate. For a moment, everything in the world seemed to be contained in it and began to evolve continuously. The mortal path, the Azura path, the animal path, the hungry ghost path, the heaven path, the hell path, and the 6 paths encompassed all living beings in the world. As long as they were living beings, they would always be able to find their own path of reincarnation. This was the fundamental reason why the 6 paths of reincarnation fist could be so widely spread. Although it was very difficult to cultivate the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to the realm of 6 paths of reincarnation unity, and there were very few people who could achieve it since ancient times. It was suitable for all races to cultivate. There would always be one that was suitable for everyone to cultivate, and as long as they persevered and had good talent, many people could cultivate one of them to the pinnacle. Yi Shiwen had first succeeded in practicing the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Because he was a human, there was nothing more suitable than the mortal path. Now, it wasn't that easy for the 6 Daos to become one. There was only one last step left, and it was also the most difficult step. In the 6 paths of reincarnation, the images of countless creatures emerged one after another, including all living things, especially the enemies that Yi Shiwen had killed in the past, began to emerge in the 6 paths of samsara. He had fully displayed the profound meaning of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Then, he grabbed the demon character and dragged it into the 6 paths of reincarnation. As the 6 paths of reincarnation roulette continued to rotate, more and more true meanings began to emerge. As soon as the 6 paths of reincarnation fist and the demon character fused, it immediately triggered a strong resonance with the ancient demon character. Some points that Yi Shiwen couldn't understand before were gradually becoming clear at this time. As long as he analyzed the demon character, he would naturally be able to understand the things that he didn't understand. The mysterious space within Yi Shiwen's body began to operate crazily. While constantly swallowing the Emperor's source, it continued to analyze the various profound meanings of the demon character and the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. This allowed Yi Shiwen's understanding of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to continuously rise in a short period of time. Yi Shiwen had already understood the true meaning of the 6 Daos, but he was only one last step away from truly cultivating the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to the peak. So that's how it is. Yi Shiwen continued to absorb the essence of the analysis, and suddenly felt enlightened. Now that he had a slight understanding and cultivation of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, many problems could be easily understood without the need to be taught from the beginning. What Yi Shiwen really lacked now was the understanding of the scripture of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. He finally understood where he was lacking in the end. The biggest gap was in the control of the saints. Only by being above all living beings could it be possible to truly understand such a true meaning. Yi Mo had also once followed the Demon King to rule the world. It wasn't too difficult for him to understand the profound meaning of the 6 Daos, but it wasn't the case for Yi Shiwen. That was why he had been stuck on this path and couldn't move forward. In order to cultivate the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to the peak, Yi Shiwen separated a wisp of his spirit and directly entered the 6 paths of reincarnation and began to reincarnate. If he couldn't even reincarnate, how could he talk about the 6 paths of reincarnation unity great perfection? This wisp of spirit reincarnated and entered the 6 paths of reincarnation. It was completely random. There were mortals, immortals, emperors, generals, ministers, peddlers, humans, and other living beings. It was as if he had experienced many generations in an instant. Every time he reincarnated, his understanding of the 6 paths of reincarnation would deepen, and he would be one step closer to the great perfection. This was the true 6 paths of reincarnation. Gods transcended life and death, but it didn't mean that they could transcend the 6 paths of reincarnation. The 6 paths of reincarnation included all living beings in the world. Gods who transcended life and death were also in the 6 paths of reincarnation, and that was the heavenly Tao. One could imagine how imposing the Azura Demon King was when he first created the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. His aura swallowed the universe, and his voice shook the mountains and rivers. Originally, this process might have taken a long time to complete, but with the help of the demon character and the mysterious space, it didn't take long. Yi Shiwen directly opened his eyes and shouted, 6 paths of reincarnation unity. He shouted, and the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation wheel was absorbed into his body, and a small 6 paths of reincarnation wheel was formed in his body, constantly rotating. This was the fist intent of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, directly condensing in his body. At the moment when he achieved the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, his fist Tao incarnation also achieved the great perfection, far surpassing the other martial Tao incarnations. Finally, the great perfection. Yi Shiwen slightly calculated the time, and only a mere 10 days had passed. If not for the demon character, how could he achieve the great perfection of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist in such a short time? Under normal circumstances, even if he had the Tao fruit and enough emperor origin, it would still take more than 100 years. Although the 6 paths of reincarnation fist involved other laws, it was fundamentally still the martial arts of the demon race. Now that he had entered the Tao with the demon character directly pointing to the essence, it was naturally successful. In addition, with the help of his original foundation and the mysterious space, he easily and thoroughly cultivated the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to the great perfection. After cultivating the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to the peak, Yi Shiwen didn't stop and immediately began to display the demon wings. Now that the demon wings had been cultivated to the peak of the space wings, Yi Shiwen had already discovered the next cultivation method, which was the wings of time, which even involved the law of time. However, in essence, it was still the martial arts of the demon race, using the demon Tao as the foundation to drive the law of time. This was also the reason why the demon wings was the most popular movement technique. To be able to use the demon Tao to drive the way of time, this in itself wasn't something that ordinary people could do. It was simply a genius that could think of such a method. Around Yi Shiwen, the law of demon Tao, the law of wind and thunder, the law of light, and the law of space were all revolving around Yi Shiwen. With Yi Shiwen as the center, it formed a huge whirlpool, and countless laws emerged. In Yi Shiwen's body, the mysterious space was operating frantically, constantly practicing and deducing these laws. And with the demon character as the core, the law of time was also condensed bit by bit. While Yi Shiwen was cultivating in seclusion, the outside world was in complete chaos. As time passed, the news of Yi Shiwen defeating the nightmare and seizing the demon character had thoroughly spread throughout the myriad worlds, and many people already knew about it. At first, they absolutely refused to believe it, but as more and more news came, they had no choice but to believe it. Especially the original demon clan, they were instantly furious. The demon character was related to the heaven-devouring devil jar, and the heaven-devouring devil jar was the foundation of their clan. Without the demon character, although the heaven-devouring devil jar wouldn't immediately become useless, it would definitely have a huge impact. For a moment, the original demon clan was simply in a frenzy. Many people even clamored to teach Yi Shiwen a lesson, and some even went to the Hidden Valley to denounce him. However, the entire Hidden Valley had now been convinced by the Flame Lord, or rather, they had already boarded the pirate ship and couldn't get out. They could only follow Yi Shiwen to the end. Naturally, they refused to give in and simply went into seclusion. If they had the ability, they could find Yi Shiwen to settle the score. Naturally, they didn't have the ability to do so. Even the nightmare was defeated by Yi Shiwen, let alone them. They were completely no match for him, and naturally didn't dare to find trouble with Yi Shiwen. The other races didn't feel the pain, so they naturally didn't feel anything. However, there were still rumors that many Emperor-level inheritances weren't happy with Yi Shiwen's behavior. If everyone was like this, wouldn't it be terrible? Wouldn't everyone be in a state of panic? However, just as everyone thought that some people would stand up to oppose Yi Shiwen, the myriad worlds were abnormally calm. Those old antiques that were humiliated by Yi Shiwen on the spot didn't stand up directly. In fact, they didn't even make any noise. This inevitably disappointed many people who were planning to watch the show. There was no show to watch. For Yi Shiwen, this was also an unprecedented good opportunity and a stable period. After a month, his demon wings had finally been cultivated to the level of the wings of time. Just as he was planning to continue working hard to improve his cultivation to the peak of the king-ranked realm, a piece of news forced him out of seclusion. Chapter 2776. In the Alliance Army headquarters, in the multi-layered Cloud Pavilion Palace. Gluttonous Copper King and Hades King both sat in the main hall, their expressions extremely ugly. This time, Yi Shiwen has completely risen up. Immortal Copper King said leisurely. I regret it. Hades King shook his head and said, if I knew this would happen, I would have killed him earlier. Now that he has become so powerful, even you and I together aren't his match. I didn't take him seriously before. Although Pure Moon King isn't his match, he isn't my match. At that time, I thought that was his limit. Who would have thought that in such a short time, he has already gained the upper hand? Even Nightmare Sr. isn't his match. Immortal Copper King revealed a bitter smile. Actually, he didn't lie to Yi Shiwen. He didn't target Yi Shiwen, and there was no need to target Yi Shiwen. The person he truly wanted to deal with was Yi Mo. Speaking of which, this matter indeed had an unclear relationship with Yi Mo. Most importantly, the various clans and factions in the heavens were seething with resentment. If they didn't find a place to vent, then, as the Alliance army's higher-ups, they would inevitably become the target of this resentment. Even the head of the 10 great divine kings like him didn't dare to become enemies with everyone in the world. That was simply seeking death. Previously, when they killed the spies hidden in the Allied forces and uprooted them, they were actually venting their anger. The higher-ups had suffered heavy casualties, so how could they not vent their anger? Actually, many of the spies in the Alliance army were already under surveillance. It wasn't that they didn't know, but they felt that it wasn't the time to use them yet. Sometimes, they could even use these spies to sow discord. Otherwise, no matter how powerful the Alliance army was, it was impossible to catch so many spies in such a short time. Some had been hidden for many years. It was impossible to catch them in a short time. Yi Mo was the last target. In his opinion, if he wanted an explanation, this was enough. After all, this was another 10 great divine king level expert. Compared to Yi Mo, Yi Shiwen was considered to have a clean background. Most of his background could be investigated. Moreover, Yi Shiwen desperately covered the retreat of the main force. So many people saw it. It was impossible for him to slander Yi Shiwen. However, who knew that Yi Shiwen's reaction would be so intense just to target Yi Mo? He directly beat Lord of the Netherworld half to death. Initially, he thought that the Lord of the Netherworld would deal with Yi Shiwen personally. Who knew that the tables would be turned? He didn't expect that Yi Shiwen would completely turn the tables on him. Later on, Senior Nightmare had personally taken action. However, he had suffered another crushing defeat. These unexpected and painful lessons had caught him unprepared. By the time he had reacted, Yi Shiwen was already unable to restrain himself. He is only a king-ranked realm martial artist now, but he is already so difficult to deal with. If he becomes a quasi-thearch one day, he will be invincible, the Lord of the Netherworld said with an ugly expression. With Yi Shiwen's performance, who would believe that he couldn't even reach the Emperor realm? It was almost certain. It was just a matter of when he would reach the Emperor realm. Once he reached the Emperor realm, they wouldn't have it easy. If he wanted to care about these things, it would be difficult for them to resist. Yes, with his current strength, even among the experts of the initial stage of the Emperor realm, he is extremely strong, the Immortal Copper King said with a bitter face. It was not only because of Yi Shiwen's strength. More importantly, Yi Shiwen had cultivated for only a few thousand years. Yet he already possessed such strength. This made him, who had always thought highly of himself, feel embarrassed. Compared to others, his age wasn't considered old. He could even be considered to have made rapid progress. However, compared to Yi Shiwen, it was nothing. Lord of the Netherworld also calmed down a little. Such a powerful Yi Shiwen was indeed not someone they could easily deal with. However, if he wants to be arrogant, he can only be arrogant for a while. When the other seniors return, it will be the time of his death. People who are too arrogant will die sooner or later. Does he think that he can sit back and relax after defeating Senior Nightmare? Lord of the Netherworld said coldly. At this moment, he was also gnashing his teeth in hatred. However, in their clan, he was already an unprecedented expert. There were no other seniors that he could ask for help. Therefore, he could only rely on the old Emperor realm experts of other clans and forces to take action. Moreover, From the battle between Nightmare and Yi Shiwen, ordinary Emperor Realm experts might not be able to deal with him. Only a powerful Emperor Realm expert could possibly defeat Yi Shiwen. If he went further up, he would be a real emperor, not an ordinary quasi-emperor. Such an existence only existed in legends. Comparatively speaking, the Lord of the Underworld was still relatively young. He did not even have the chance to meet the Emperor of the Qin dynasty. If you were counting on those old people to take action personally to deal with him, then don't count on it. I'm afraid he will still be free and unfettered for a while. Immortal Copper King said slowly. What do you mean? Lord of the Netherworld looked at Immortal Copper King and asked in confusion. I just received news that the seal of the Heavenly Clan has been broken. Immortal Copper King said with an ashen face. What? The seal of the Heavenly Clan has been broken. Lord of the Netherworld immediately jumped up from his seat. Once this news was spread out, one could imagine what kind of uproar it would cause. It was simply unimaginable. In the myriad heavens and realms, the Heavenly Clan was a terrifying clan to all clans. It was not referring to the remnants of the Heavenly Clan. On the contrary, it was referring to the true main force of the Heavenly Clan that was exiled. They were the most terrifying existences. 2 battles had caused the heavens and earth to collapse. Countless heroes of various clans, and even many Emperor Realm experts had fallen in these 2 battles against the heavens. A battle where even Emperor Realm experts had fallen. Lord of the Netherworld didn't even dare to imagine how terrifying it would be. Fortunately, these people were exiled. However, these people had actually returned and the seal had been broken. Once this news was spread out, not to mention an uproar in the myriad heavens and realms, there would probably be many people who would kneel down immediately. He only felt that his back was completely cold. In an instant, his back was already completely cold and soaked in cold sweat. Yes, the seal of the Heavenly Clan has been broken. Immortal Copper King sighed and said, now that those lords have already rushed over, no matter which clan they are from, they don't dare to stay here at this time. They have to go over there and block the seal. Otherwise, we will really be finished. At this time, Lord of the Netherworld had already thoroughly understood what Immortal Copper King had said just now. The masters of the Heavenly Clan had actually broken the seal and returned. The myriad heavens and realms were going to fall into a complete panic. Who would still pay attention to such a trivial matter like Yi Shiwen? Compared to this personal grudge, fighting against the Heavenly Clan was a more important matter. Yi Shiwen's luck was simply extraordinary good. This gave him some time to breathe and prolong his craving for a period of time. He didn't think that Yi Shiwen could progress to any extent in such a short period of time. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen's death had already entered the countdown. However, at this time, Lord of the Netherworld didn't have the mood to pay attention to these things at all. Instead, he quickly asked, what should we do? Is the real Third Heavenly War really going to happen? Those inheritances that have produced Emperor Lords have already been burned. What about the Heavenly Notification Talisman? Even if there is no Emperor Lord returning, even if there is only one, we can still stabilize the front line. He quickly asked. The so-called Heavenly Notification Talisman was a kind of talisman that some mysterious disappeared Emperor Lords left in their respective forces before they left. As long as the Heavenly Notification Talisman was ignited at the critical moment, they might receive the news in return. Such a thing had occasionally happened in the Great Crisis since ancient times. There were indeed examples of Emperor Lords returning, but that was the last trump card of the inheritances that had produced Emperor Lords. Because the Heavenly Notification Talisman was limited, it would not be completely burned until the critical moment. If they couldn't contact them, then it would really be a waste. Obviously, if those Heavenly Clan broke the seal, such a major event was indeed worth using the Heavenly Notification Talisman. You don't have to be so alarmed. Things are not as bad as you think. Immortal Copper King looked at Lord of the Netherworld and said, Then, what do you mean? Lord of the Netherworld asked. Back then, so many Emperor Lords joined hands to set up the seal. How could it be so easy to break it? Especially the arrays that were set up by those Emperor Lords. Many of them were targeted at the Heavenly Clan Emperor Lords. They couldn't break it. So from the news that I got now, it should be the experts below the Emperor Lord level that have poured in. We haven't seen the Emperor Lords yet. Otherwise, with our current situation, I reckon that we would have killed our way to the Alliance headquarters first. Immortal Copper King said faintly. That's good. Lord of the Netherworld heaved a sigh of relief. If the Emperor Lords of the Heavenly Clan really returned, then the Alliance had no other choice but to kneel. They could deal with the remnants of the Heavenly Clan, but it didn't mean that they could fight against a real Emperor Lord. Unless the Emperor Lords on their side also returned, the situation would be a one-sided massacre. Everyone below the Emperor Lord was just an ant. No matter how many people went, it would be useless. But even so, the situation is not optimistic. Don't forget, although there are no Emperor Lords among the Heavenly Clan experts that have poured out from the seal this time, there are quasi-Emperor experts. Coupled with many Divine Kings, it is not impossible for them to defeat us in one fell swoop. Immortal Copper King said with a dignified expression. Compared with this matter, Yi Shiwen's matter was just a small matter at best. It was not worth worrying about. Chapter 2777. The Lord of the Underworld's face turned pale all of a sudden. These people were the best among the divine kings of the various races, which was why they were called the 10 Great Divine Kings. However, the Tian clan was an existence that could contend against the myriad heavens. Even if the Emperor-level experts were not included, the Tian clan would not be at a disadvantage against the myriad heavens. They might even have the upper hand, especially when the various races had just suffered heavy losses. After all, although the Tian clan did not have an Emperor-level expert, the allied forces of the various races also did not have an Emperor-level expert. With this, wouldn't they be even? Thinking of this, the attack of the Tian clan this time was simply extremely dangerous. Calamity. This is really a great calamity. It is simply unimaginable. The Lord of the Underworld's face was completely pale, thinking of how terrifying this would be. It was unknown how many people in the myriad heavens would die because of this. Even the experts of their level would be like weeds, dying just like that. Only the experts of the quasi-emperor level could say that they could protect themselves, and only the experts of the emperor level had the real ability to protect themselves. Even so, in the past wars, the number of emperor-level experts that had fallen was not small. How could this be? Isn't the seal very strong over there? There are even 10 great quasi-emperors personally guarding it. How could there be a problem? The Lord of the Underworld's face became more and more unsightly. As one of the 10 great divine kings, he was almost the top expert in the myriad heavens. He also knew a lot of secrets that ordinary people in the myriad heavens did not know. The seal that was jointly sealed by the great emperor-level experts was a secret in the myriad heavens, in order to prevent the remnants of the Tian clan from finding and destroying the seal. However, at that time, there were 10 incomparably powerful quasi-emperors personally guarding it. Judging from the combat power at that time, other than the absence of emperor-level experts, it was the most luxurious configuration. Although the various races had no way to directly find the seal, they also had the means to contact in times of emergency, so that if there was any problem with the seal, the myriad heavens would still be ignorant, and at that time, it would delay the big matter. I'm not sure about this. Previously, I only received a message informing that there was a problem with the seal, but soon there was no way to contact them. If I am not wrong, they should have all fallen. The immortal Copper King said with a serious face. The Lord of the Underworld also did not know what to say. The 10 great quasi-emperors were actually wiped out. What kind of terrifying combat power was this? In the situation where the emperor-level experts did not come out, probably only the Tian clan had such combat power. Although no one knows where the seal grounds are, but after so many years, not only are the people of the Tian clan looking for that place, we are no exception. Right now, we still have a rough direction, and when the time comes, if the people of the Tian clan come out and follow that direction, we will be able to find it earlier. I hope that there aren't too many experts that have come out yet. If that's the case, we will still be able to clean up the mess. The immortal Copper King sighed. This matter had already completely exceeded the scope of his ability. There were many things that he was unable to help even if he wanted to. The Lord of the Underworld saw that the immortal Copper King's words were pleasant to hear, but he himself understood that the probability was not very high. After the seal was broken, even the 10 great quasi-emperors were completely wiped out. Then even if the Tian clan army did not come out, it would be more or less the same. For the myriad heavens, how could it not be a huge disaster? Now that this news is probably already spread out, the blockade can't be blocked anymore. The current major matter is to deal with the counterattack of the Tian clan. I still have countless doppelgangers on my side to personally invite those seniors out. The immortal Copper King said, since ancient times, there were so many divine king-level experts, naturally they would not be as few as what was seen now. It was just that many people painstakingly cultivated in seclusion and were not willing to come out. If ordinary matters were to disturb them, they would most likely be immediately thrown out. However, this matter concerned the Tian clan. It was extremely dangerous, so they should be able to understand. This is really a great calamity. No one can escape from it. The Lord of the Underworld thought of a terrifying conjecture, and that was that this was a kind of natural cleansing activity carried out by the heaven and earth, eliminating some old monsters that had accumulated for many years. These gods were immortal and had escaped from the scope of birth, old age, sickness, and death. If the conditions allowed, they could even live for eternity. However, the resources of the heaven and earth were limited. Sooner or later, they would be used up. Even if ordinary mortals cultivated, they would quickly turn into a cup of yellow soil and return to the heaven and earth. But for these people, if they were immortal and lived for eternity, the number of experts would only increase. If experts were to be produced at this rate, the resources of the heaven and earth would have been in crisis a long time ago. However, in reality, there was no such thing. It was because from time to time, a great calamity would erupt. Many hidden great characters couldn't escape and were killed one after another. Not to mention those ordinary people, they would die one after another. This was a terrifying conjecture, which was only circulated among the higher-ups of the various races. Only those at their level could possibly know about it. If this was really the case, then they had to be careful, because they were probably already on the blacklist of the heaven and earth. Although the heaven and earth did not have a subjective consciousness, it was precisely because of this that it was terrifying. It would not practice favoritism. After a certain extent, it would automatically become the target of its cleansing. It was like there was a malignant tumor growing in a human body. This malignant tumor had nothing to do all day, and it would absorb the essence of one's life all day long. Moreover, it would not age or die, and it would become stronger and stronger without a day of rest. At this time, if this malignant tumor was not removed, the person would die. This was very reasonable, but it was precisely because of this that infinite fear emerged in people's hearts. If the opponent was the Tian clan, there was still a possibility of fighting, but if it was the heaven, how could they fight? Thinking of this, he really felt an incomparable headache, and there was a sense of extreme danger. However, at this time, he had no other choice. He had chosen to enter the world and brought his race to the level of a few king races. Now it was time to repay the karma. No one can escape. We can only try our best. Immortal Copper King said somewhat powerlessly. At his level of cultivation, it was almost impossible to encounter a situation that would make him feel powerless. Even if he faced the powerful Yi Shiwen, he had many ways to deal with him. If he couldn't, then he would ask the other seniors to come back. There would always be a way. But if the opponent was the heaven, then what should he do? He could only hope that he would not be the most unlucky one. No matter what, we are currently safe in the Alliance headquarters. Those Tian clan have just returned and haven't figured out the situation yet. Even if they are arrogant and bold, they would not dare to come to the headquarters. Immortal Copper King said, "We have a lot of arrays arranged by the emperors here, and we have been persistently repairing them all these years. I think it should not be a problem to block the Tian clan army." Immortal Copper King's gaze penetrated through the layers of space, and he could see one ancient array after another reviving and activating. At this time, no one dared to take it lightly. It was going to be another terrifying battle. You are right, this will be a long war. Fortunately, those emperors of the Tian clan have not returned. Otherwise, even if we have an emperor-level array in the Alliance headquarters, it would be broken in minutes. It would be useless. Without the emperors overseeing, it is impossible for us to revive the array to its peak. Speaking of which, it is also a waste of resources. Immortal Copper King nodded and said, "No matter what, those inheritances that have produced emperors have to ignite the heavenly notification talisman. If we can invite back even one emperor, it will be enough to reverse the situation and completely seal the Tian clan." The Lord of the Netherworld said, especially Wu Zong, "The Qin Emperor is the closest sovereign to us. If those disappeared sovereigns are still alive, then he is the one with the highest possibility of survival. After all, he left for the shortest time." Regarding the whereabouts of those disappeared Emperor Qin, everyone secretly speculated. Many people even guessed that they might have already fallen. But this point was completely denied by those inheritances that had produced Emperor Qin. Emperor Qin was their biggest protective talisman and tiger skin. Unless they were seen to have fallen, it was absolutely impossible to admit such a thing. Not to mention, these things were just a guess. And, yes, when those emperors return, the situation can be immediately reversed. Immortal Copper King said, originally, he did not hope for those Emperor Qin to return. Once such a character returned, there would be no place for them in the world. Naturally, they would rule the world and control everything in the world. But now that the situation had reached such a critical time, he had completely changed his mind. Although power was important, it was not more important than his own life. As for Yi Shiwen's matter, let's put it aside for the time being. At this time, there is no need to fight with him until both sides suffer. To fight against the Tian clan, he is also a very important combat power. Immortal Copper King glanced at King of the Netherworld and said, compared to him, King of the Netherworld and Yi Shiwen were the ones who would not rest until one of them died. He was only contradicted by Yi Shiwen, but he was defeated by Yi Shiwen in a humiliating manner. How could he, who was proud and arrogant, accept this? Therefore, King of the Netherworld had been playing small tricks recently. These things were all under the eyes of Immortal Copper King, but he did not want to care. It just so happened that there was someone who could take care of Yi Shiwen. That would be the best. Moreover, King of the Netherworld was only ranked below him, but he was not his subordinate. He could not order him, so he could only turn a blind eye. Now that the situation had been reversed, he did not want any more twists and turns to continue the internal losses. Chapter 2778. Alright, I won't deliberately target him. King of the Netherworld gritted his teeth and said. He was also very unwilling. Being humiliated by Yi Shiwen in front of everyone was simply a great humiliation to him. Especially after Yi Shiwen defeated Nightmare one step further, he had completely become synonymous with overestimating himself. Even Nightmare was not a match for him, let alone him, a mere king of the Netherworld. He was a top-notch expert ranked at the top of the 10 great divine kings. Yet he was actually described as a mere. Wasn't such humiliation serious enough? During this period of time, he had been jumping up and down and contacted many experts to target Yi Shiwen and the Hidden Valley. However, he was naturally very clear about what was more important now. Compared to the major event of the Heavenly Clan's return, Yi Shiwen's matter was simply insignificant, and no one would really pay attention to this matter. He really got lucky. However, after we defeat the Heavenly Clan, it will be the death of a clown like him. All of them must be eliminated. King of the Netherworld said coldly. He even thought of letting Yi Shiwen die in the battle with the Heavenly Clan. Although he couldn't deliberately target Yi Shiwen, if there was such a good opportunity, then don't blame him for making a move. Then, the heavens wanted him dead. Immortal Copper King saw King of the Netherworld's murderous aura, but he didn't say anything. He also hated Yi Shiwen, and wished for both sides to fight to the death. He and King of the Netherworld weren't considered good friends. They were only temporary allies. If it wasn't for the matter of the Heavenly Clan that formed the Alliance Army, they might still be on the opposing side. However, this news hasn't spread out yet, said King of the Netherworld. It hasn't been produced yet, but this is only a matter of time, said Immortal Copper King. Sure enough, everything was as Immortal Copper King said. The news spread out very quickly. Perhaps ordinary news could be concealed, but such a big news couldn't be concealed at all, or it could be said that no one had the guts to conceal it. Otherwise, it would attract the suppression of everyone in the myriad worlds. When this news came out, it immediately overshadowed all the previous news. In an instant, the entire universe was violently shocked. How many years had it been since they had felt this way? The celestial race had revived once again. Although most of the people who were active in the myriad heavens and myriad worlds had not experienced the previous two battles against the heavens, it did not prevent them from understanding how terrifying the celestial race was from the ancient records of their ancestors. That was the most terrifying threat in the myriad heavens, the eternal enemy of every race. Compared to the celestial race, the personal grudges of every race were not important at all. Once the Tian clan returned, then it would be a problem for them to even survive. The Tian clan had been sealed twice and had failed twice. It was unknown how many experts had died or been injured in the various clans, but it was already a blood feud that could not be resolved. Once the two sides clashed, it would be a fight to the death. That was why the matter of DNI immediately attracted the attention of all the worlds, and the allied forces were immediately formed. If it had been something else, it would have been impossible to organize the allied forces in such a short period of time. This was a lesson learned through blood and tears, and they had no choice but to ignore it. Previously, it was just the remnants of the Tian clan, and it was already so difficult for them to deal with them. Not to mention the return of the Tian clan. How terrifying was that? In an instant, the entire situation had been completely reversed. From the various allied forces completely having the upper hand to the Tian clan completely having the upper hand. This news spread throughout the myriad heavens and myriad worlds like the wind, and as fast as it was, the speed at which the Tian clan sent out their troops. The remnants of the Tian clan in the myriad heavens and the experts of the Tian clan that had swarmed out from the sealed grounds quickly gathered together. Although the experts of the Tian clan in the sealed grounds were not familiar with the myriad heavens and myriad worlds, with the remnants of the Tian clan leading them, there would not be any problems. They quickly split into several groups and pounced towards the various major forces in the myriad heavens and myriad worlds. Furthermore, the main force was still rapidly gathering, and its strength was becoming stronger and stronger. In the sealed grounds, countless experts swarmed out every day. The true strength of the Tian clan had finally revealed its true face, revealing its astonishing claws and teeth. Many forces did not even have time to react before they were completely annihilated. For a time, there was blood everywhere, and the flames of war were everywhere. It was as if the flames of war had ignited the myriad heavens and myriad worlds in an instant. And this news naturally reached the ears of the Flame Lord very quickly. He immediately rushed in, disregarding the fact that Yi Shiwen was still in closed-door training. At that time, it had already been 10 years since Yi Shiwen had been in closed-door training. 10 years was actually just a blink of an eye for these gods who had infinite lifespans. In this short period of time, Yi Shiwen's strength had greatly improved. The wings of the demon had been completely deduced to the level of the wings of time. Compared to the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, the wings of time was even more difficult. The main reason was that the laws of time that were involved were too profound. Yi Shiwen had used up all his methods, but he had only managed to cultivate it to the great perfection stage. Besides the cultivation of the wings of the demon, in these 10 years, Yi Shiwen had spent most of his time on increasing his strength. The Emperor's source that he had brought with him had already been consumed by him. There were less than 300,000 left. A total of 700,000 Emperor's source had been completely consumed by him. Besides using them to comprehend the word demon and cultivate the wings of the demon, he had used most of them to absorb and transform them into martial arts. Yi Shiwen, who had just broken through to the late stage of the king-ranked realm, was like an expanded pool. His capacity had increased, but he did not have enough martial arts. After 10 years of absorbing martial arts, Yi Shiwen had finally rushed to the peak of the late stage of the king-ranked realm. He was only half a step away from the peak of the king-ranked realm. At that time, he could try to break through to the quasi-emperor realm. However, he did not have enough emperor source. He definitely had to return to the Devil King's treasure house. The reason why he had improved so quickly was because of his previous accumulations. Now he had used up all his previous accumulations. If he wanted to advance to the peak of the king-ranked realm, he had to return to the Devil King's treasure house to continue accumulating. Even so, compared to others, his speed was still frighteningly fast. Yi Shiwen had originally intended to continue consolidating his cultivation for a period of time. Who knew that he would hear this news? He could not sit still any longer. After that, an even more shocking piece of news came. A celestial race army was already heading in the direction of the Hidden Valley. Their target was very obvious. They were probably heading towards the Hidden Valley. As the representative of the Hidden Valley, the Lord of Flames had to stay in the Alliance Army headquarters to communicate. Hence, Yi Shiwen could only return. Furthermore, compared to Yi Shiwen, the Lord of Flames' strength was nothing. Compared to Yi Shiwen, it was more suitable for him to return and provide reinforcements. After receiving this news, Yi Shiwen did not dare to stay any longer. He quickly rushed out of the Alliance Army headquarters and rushed in the direction of the Hidden Valley. The endless war was ignited in the myriad heavens. Except for some deeper regions, more than half of the myriad heavens had fallen into the flames of war. Many forces had no time to resist. They did not even have the time to organize a decent resistance before they were completely annihilated. The celestial race army was even more terrifying than the legends. Sieging cities and seizing strongholds was as simple as eating and drinking water. One world after another was captured by them. Countless people of various races died tragically. Some of them were simply captured and enslaved. The celestial race had always thought that they were the favored children of heaven and earth. They did not care about other races. They only treated them as slaves. Otherwise, they would not have triggered the first war against the heavens. Yi Shiwen flew all the way. His wings of time really showed its terrifying power at this time. He was shuttling between worlds at an extremely fast speed. He saw that in the vast myriad heavens, almost all of them were caught in the flames of war. Countless immortal inheritances were caught in the flames of war. They were attacked by the celestial race or the celestial race's vassal army. One world after another was shrouded in the smoke of war. Some of these celestial race's vassals were the celestial race's vassals a long time ago. However, after the celestial race lost power, they went into hiding. They hid in the corners of the myriad heavens, waiting for the celestial race to recover. Now they finally had the opportunity. Some of them were slaves who had just been captured by the celestial race. At this time, they had become the vanguard army and cannon fodder. They had no choice. If they did not do this, they would die tragically. As more and more worlds were captured, more and more resources were used by the celestial race. The celestial race, who had caught the myriad heavens unprepared, was growing rapidly. They plundered more resources. It was unknown how much wealth they had plundered. Yi Shiwen saw it all. Countless battles were going on. It was unknown how many battlefields were going on at the same time. There were more and more celestial race masters. Some of them directly encountered Yi Shiwen and were directly taken care of by him. However, Yi Shiwen did not care about some other celestial race. At this time, there was nothing more important than the Hidden Valley. He could not care so much about other people's affairs. Yi Shiwen even encountered 3 experts of the 10 great divine kings level along the way. There were experts of the Tian clan and also their vassal clans. If Yi Shiwen wanted to take care of them, he would have to put in a lot of effort. However, what Yi Shiwen lacked the most at this time was time. Therefore, he could only let them go. Such chaos is simply a sign of the coming of chaos. However, it may not be a bad thing for me. Only in such a chaotic situation, I am not too dazzling. I have enough time to grow. Yi Shiwen was a little happy. He naturally had his own plans. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lord YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.